I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
I have just returned from Buckingham Palace to form the next government of this great nation.
Take a look at what happened.
I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack.
The time has come, and this surely is England's time.
Williams who scores, and Spain lead. Shot from distance is in. It is Cole Palmer. Low ball in, Oivamo slides it in.
An absolute killer of a goal.
I agree with the protest, but I don't think the violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was the answer at all.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats.
The Liberal left couldn't understand that this man could be anything other than the great newsreader, a man of integrity.
Is it possible in any way, shape or form that Keir Starmer didn't know about these facts about the suspect in Southport?
I find it extraordinary that he wouldn't know. It seems that the public has not been told the truth.
No, there's nothing like an American election, I have to say. North Dakota has gone red, South Dakota's red, Texas is red.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason.
Bloomberg UK reporting Ukraine has made the first long-range missile strike inside of Russia. These are the missiles that Biden...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. We are here. It is the first and last show of the year before Christmas. I'm Mike Graham. It is, of course, now, Friday the 20th of December. Absolutely incredible. I don't know how we got here. The year has been quite extraordinary, quite substantial. I'm not going to say it's the last show of the year because I'm going to be doing one shortly before New Year's Eve. But for the moment, for this particular moment in time, this is the last show we're going to be doing for at least a week or so. Benedict Spencer's here to help us through the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune in the papers this morning. The budget has left us with zero growth. That's not just my opinion. That's what the Bank of England say. They are officially blaming Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, Rachel Thieves, as some people would like to call her, of completely and utterly kiboshing the British economy. She came in on a sort of, a wing and a prayer. She was supposed to be the first woman Chancellor. She was supposed to be the great shining light. She was supposed to be a cross between George Osborne and Gordon Brown and Jesus Christ. She was going to make everything better. But in fact, she's made everything worse. And if she was in charge of a coach, she'd be currently driving over a cliff somewhere near Beachy Head, and we'd all be plunging into the sea. Some of us might not survive. So according to the Bank of England, they say basically the economy is stagnating following Rachel Reeves' budget, and it's not going to get any better over Christmas. It doesn't matter how much money you spend on last-minute shopping. £20 million apparently is going to be spent over the next couple of days for people buying last-minute gifts. That's not going to boost the economy. It's not going to do any good at all. We've got Keir Starmer, who was up before a committee yesterday, admitting that when he was asked if he had any regrets about what's happened so far in his incredibly bad leadership of the country, he said no. Meanwhile, Joe Biden's back in the news because it turns out the Wall Street Journal have done an in-depth investigation into the state of Joe Biden's brain, and they've decided that actually he was senile from the very moment he took office. as the President of the United States 4 years ago. That's absolutely right. 4 years ago, he wasn't fit to be President. Absolutely incredible stuff. 0344 499 1000. We've got so many stories to talk about, but we need your help today because this is going to be a fun show. It's all going to be about Christmas. It's all going to be about how useless this government is. We had some incredible voice notes yesterday. Some of you singing songs, some of you writing new lyrics to Christmas carols about Keir Starmer, some of you writing poems. We want that sort of level of creativity, please. You know what to do. 0344 499 1000. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Five minutes past 6. Benedict Spence is here. A very good and very warm welcome to you, Benedict.
Good morning.
Greetings of the season. How are you? Are you feeling Christmassy?
Oh no, I'm just waiting for this year to end.
Really?
This has been in politics.
I wouldn't be too hasty because I think next year's going to be actually even worse.
To be honest, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be pretty bad for the next couple of years, but you know, that's democracy for you. We made a calculated choice, right, and it turns out to have been the wrong one.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
When's ever the right one? I'd like to know when that happens.
Well, yes. I mean, when was the last time anybody elected the government actually was full of hope?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what it was, actually. It was 2019, when Boris Johnson won that massive landslide with 80-seat majority in 2019.
Yeah.
I genuinely thought, this is going to be great. He's going to come in, and in the new year, we're going to kick off, you know, leaving the European Union. We're going to get Brexit done. We're going to be able to import all kinds of, you know, really, really interesting investment into Britain. Britain will stand alone. And then suddenly COVID appeared. Yeah. And that was the end of that.
It really was the curveball to end all. To end all. And, you know, any optimism that any of us had went right out the window because actually, of course, even a government that was sort of ostensibly as pro-freedom as that one was, went into isolation mode, went down into the bunker, was convinced that COVID was going to kill everybody. All the boffins that were working with Dominic Cummings were absolutely convinced we were all going to die. Yeah. This was the big one, and therefore your liberties had to go. Yes. And you know, along with that, any chance of economic growth or reform, that just went. And that really was a sad old time, but it's been progressively worse since then. There's been no attempt to reclaim that optimism that we had in 2019.
Not at all. I mean, every week since this Labour government has been in, and they got elected on July the 4th, things have just gone from bad to worse. When you thought they couldn't get any worse, this week we got the waspy women scenario. We got, you know, Keir Starmer basically appearing before a committee asking if he had any regrets. We'll play that to you in a minute. But this morning, the front page of the Times, the Bank of England has sounded a warning that the economy is stagnating following Rachel Reeves' budget after businesses responded by raising prices and cutting jobs. I mean, every business now that you talk to is saying this is a disaster. Yeah. We can't hire anybody. We can't afford to pay the new national insurance prices that we're being asked to pay by the government. Yeah. And frankly, we're going to be... I spoke to a guy the other day who runs a bunch of businesses which are relatively successful, but sort of what you might call medium, you know, in terms of the numbers of people they employ. Yeah. 2 of the 8 businesses he runs, he's shutting down because they simply aren't economically viable anymore.
Yeah, and you sort of combine that with Angela Rayner's workers' rights bill and all that sort of thing. It's going to make it harder to sack people, even if they are incompetent, and you think... Yeah. Well, what actually is there to incentivise people to hire people? No. It's just getting worse and worse.
There isn't any incentive whatsoever. No. Let's have a sort of... We're going to do a few of these. We're going to take a little meander back through the years or through the months of this Labour government. And this was Keir Starmer singing the praises of Rachel Reeves a few months ago as the first woman Chancellor ever.
It will also be the first budget delivered by a woman ever. That is a moment of pride. When Rachel Reeves stands up, she will be making history. And I can tell you, young women and girls across the country will be watching, they will look up, and they will notice.
Do you think his wife told him to say that? Because, you know, quite frankly, it's embarrassing. That will be a moment of history. He was so pleased with himself, wasn't he? With the first woman Chancellor. Well, you haven't had a woman leader yet, matey, so we get too carried away. Yeah. And she has been nothing but an unmitigated disaster.
If you were to take her as the example, we will never have another female Chancellor.
No, and we definitely shouldn't. If this is the idea of a woman running the country and a woman running the economy, I'm afraid it's the worst advert for women doing that ever.
But it's a sign, I think, of how vapid they are, that actually this was taken as a moment. Not what's the content of the budget, what's going to be the long-term effect. Oh, it's a woman, and it stood there, and all the other girls are going to be happy.
Women and girls are going to look and see, and like, let's play it again, actually, because look at the smile on his face. It's so fake. It's like, you know, never mind the Ming vase strategy. Have a look at this. Let's have a look again.
It will also be the first budget delivered by a woman ever. That is a moment of pride. When Rachel Reeves stands up, she will be making history. And I can tell you, young women and girls across the country will be watching, they will look up, and they will notice.
And she certainly has made history. According to the Bank of England, they've now downgraded their forecast for the economy, said that they now expect zero growth in the final 3 months of this year. Zero growth. So let's all have a round of applause for Rachel Reeves, the first woman Chancellor. Well done, darling. You've taken us down to net zero in the economy.
The adults
Tremendous.
The adults are back in charge. Everything's fine. Pay no attention to what's going on behind the curtain.
Just incredible.
And in case of emergency, import more migrants.
Right.
That's basically the strategy.
And how about the other big story this morning on the front pages? My Lord Mandelson, the Prince of Darkness, who denied this, by the way. Last time I saw him, he was on Laura Kunsberg's show, and he went, oh, absolute rubbish, nothing to it. There's no truth to it at all. He's going to be made Britain's ambassador to the United States, making the first political appointment to the role in almost half a century.
Do you know what? I don't feel so bad about this appointment.
I don't mind Mandelson.
Yeah. I think he is competent. There is a reason that we are also terrified of him. He is a much better appointment than some of the appointments that have been made by this government. Let's be clear, the former Transport Secretary was not a good appointment.
Louise Haigh, yes.
The current...
The convicted fraudster.
The current Foreign Secretary is a disaster.
David Lammy, comical Lammy, yes.
Yeah, so as they go, this is not the worst one, but doesn't it say an awful lot about the quality within the Labour Party right now that Starmer has had to go all the way back to the Blair era to not a particularly great figure from the Blair era and gone, this is probably the most competent person that I can put in front of Donald Trump. This is the guy. I think that really does speak to, frankly, the hollowing out of talent in our politics.
But let's not forget that Peter Mandelson is also a man who had to resign his job in the cabinet under Tony Blair because of a rather, shall we say, ill-judged loan that he got from Geoffrey Robinson. He was a very wealthy a man who was a member of the Labour Party as well and an MP who helped him with his mortgage so that he could buy a £4 million house in Notting Hill.
So, a really good person to have in charge of the trade deal with the United States. I mean,
I'm not suggesting for a minute that Lord Mandelson is in any way corrupt. Obviously, that would be wrong.
Yes.
But what I am saying is that he's not a man who's unadjacent, shall we say, to scandal.
Yeah. I suppose him and Trump will therefore have something in common.
Possibly so. Apparently he's a close ally of Morgan McSweeney, number 10's Chief of Staff. Now, I was told, and I'm sure you were as well, Morgan McSweeney, one of the cleverest men with one of the biggest brains in the world. Now, if he's actually running Downing Street and he hasn't been replaced by some kind of cipher, he's not as good as he thinks he is. Because if he was, we wouldn't be hearing all these terrible, terrible things about what's going on.
Well, of course, all of this stems from the election results. Everybody's saying he's the mastermind behind the general election. You think, well, there was just a decapitated pander where the Conservative Party used to be, and you just had to walk round it.
You literally had to walk around it, put your X in a box, and that's your business strategy for, for the
and that
election.
Makes him an absolute genius in modern politics. You know, who are we to disagree
But do we not
with that?
find this quite a lot? And over the years, you hear all these people, and we all know them. You meet them in this sort of the smoky, what used to be called the smoky corridors of Westminster, the smoky pubs of Westminster, and people go on about these characters who are really, really clever, very clever people, like Dominic Cummings, very smart man, absolutely brilliant. And there he is. Oh, what's that? Oh, there he is running out of Downing Street because he's frightened of COVID. You know, to get in a car and drive his son to a place where nobody's ever heard of.
The desperately sad thing is, Cummings actually is clever for people in Westminster.
Well, he's clever.
But, but even within that, there is this sense, of course, that there are sort of higher IQs working all the time. And it's just not true. And as we're now sort of elaborating, Dominic Cummings is the absolute brain box of a man who couldn't quite figure out that A follows B and very simple things about lockdown and how the public might respond to that.
And he was also so weird that he couldn't get along with Boris Johnson's wife.
Couldn't get, well, I mean, Boris Johnson...
he had to sort of blow the whole thing up.
I always thought that was, you know, what a brilliant strategist to think, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pick a fight with Boris Johnson's other half. And I'm sure it'll work out for me.
Yeah, because he should leave her and just stay with me.
He should listen to me and my other weirdo friends. And by the way, I'm sure the civil service are going to be really keen to work with us, given that I have spent all this time insulting them and now threatening to sack them, even though I don't have the power to do it. It was... very unedifying.
Not the work of somebody you would say, generally speaking, was intelligent.
No, and if we're being honest, for those listening at home who have never had the great fortune of bumping into the people who occupy the formerly smoky corridors, there's a lot of this. Yeah. There's a lot of talking themselves up, talking each other up, a lot of backstabbing, there's a lot of gossip. Yeah. When we talk about sixth form politics, that actually is very often what we mean. It's not necessarily the ideological sort of, going up in the dispatch box and talking about Marx or Gramsci or whatever it is. There's a lot of this. It's just egos, it's just backstabbing. It's a lot more childish than you would hope it would be. Yes. But that's the reality.
But that is the way they operate, because that's all they know in many cases. Let's take a little visit to the Parliamentary Liaison Committee. Sir Keir Starmer, or Sir Keith Starlin, as he's sometimes known, appeared there yesterday, and he was asked this question.
Is there anything that you would do differently if you were starting out now, knowing what you know?
No, we had to do tough stuff. We're getting on with it, and I'm very pleased to be delivering from a position of power rather than going around the division lobbies losing every night. I've had too much of that.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Sir Keir. He's very happy to be delivering. Delivering what exactly? Delivering zero growth, delivering no possible improvements to people's lives. He keeps talking about we had to make these tough decisions in order to make people better off. We're not better off, right? No. So forget that. His other reasoning is we have to do this to bring the waiting list down in the NHS. Also not happening.
I actually believe him, though, when he says he wouldn't do anything differently. Yeah. I don't think he has the imagination to think what else he would do differently. I think that this was all sadly very predictable. You've spoken about this. Yes. Every other presenter on this radio show has spoken about what was going to come down the line, and many of your guests, that this budget was not going to cause growth, that a lot of the plans that they were putting forward were unnecessary and, in fact, were actively damaging. Yeah. Lo and behold, things are not going particularly well. But I'm not surprised at all that he would sit there and go, I wouldn't do anything differently. Of course he wouldn't. He is the arch-proceduralist.
Do you think he's one of those people that also can't admit that he got something wrong?
Possibly.
Because
also,
he was asked this by Harry Cole the other day. Have you made mistakes? And he sort of glossed over the question, didn't address it at all, didn't say, well, you know what, actually, I feel as though probably I could have done things slightly differently. Not really a mistake, but possibly some of the things that we did were not handled as well as they should have been. Anything to give people something to hang on to actually understand that he is human after all. But he's not, is he?
I suspect that that's probably right, that he's not really capable of introspection in that sense. And this is, of course, one of the big criticisms of him from the left of the party, is the way that he dumped Jeremy Corbyn, having backed him. But if you then
his
ask
friend
him,
Jeremy Corbyn.
But if you ask him from any other position, do you regret it? He doesn't necessarily regret it. No, he sort of tries to worm his way around it. Yeah. And it just gives him the impression of being a very slippery character, of being somebody who is evasive. Right. And he doesn't even have the good grace to be entertaining whilst he does it. At least Boris Johnson would be slightly amusing.
But is he not also the complete antithesis of what they sold us? You know, the bag of goods that we were told we were buying if we voted for Labour, which I didn't, by the way. I suspect you didn't either. No. Was this kind of, grown-ups are in charge, a very, very sort of, autocratic, very sensible man. Nothing will happen. There will be no scandal. There will be absolutely no brooking of the rules. There will be absolutely nothing other than complete and utter service to the country. And it's been nothing but the opposite of that. As soon as he got in, we found out that he was in receipt of getting free clothes from Lord Ali, free spectacles, clothes for his wife, clothes for, Angela Rayner, clothes for Rachel Reeves, clothes for Sue Gray's son, and money for all sorts of MPs, freebie holidays to America, and it was nothing but sleaze. Yeah. And that's how it started.
Yeah, that was straight off the bat.
That was the first week.
This sort of low-level sleaze combined with ideology, basically. So it was going to be things like that on top of VAT on school fees and all these sorts of things. Right. I think a lot of people were very concerned straight away that, oh, hang on, this is not what we were promised at all. But why would it have been? Actually, even when New Labour came in, there was a lot of, there was actually a lot of controversy about a number of the MPs from very early on. And they also led almost straight off the bat with fox hunting. Yeah. And you kind of sat there going, well, what's that got to do with anything? It's an ideological point. So they're in it for themselves. Oh, and by the way, they're going to get some of their pet peeves done first.
And we're going to recreate the country in our own image.
Yeah, so for that, there's farmers and inheritance tax because they don't like farmers. They, even though farmers are perhaps the biggest group of working people in this country.
Right.
They absolutely loathe them because they're not metropolitan elites and because they all wear tweed and barbers. So you got that. You got the VAT on school fees, which everybody said at the time, well, this looks like it's going to cost more money than it's going to make, and they went, yep, well, we're going to do it anyway. And that's just kind of been how it's been ever since. I mean, even, I think, what was it, Wednesday, there was some announcement that they were going to scrap teaching children Latin in state schools. Now, most people might think, well, Latin's not the most important thing. To which you go, yeah, but this is, the school year's already started. This has already been budgeted for. Right. What are you getting rid of it for? You know, state school pupils learning this, and this is all supposed to be about getting rid of elitism. And you think, right, so you're only going to give that access to private school kids now. You're going to do, and you think, well, what was the point of that? You could have carried it on till the end of the year. Yeah. No. They did it during the year because it's ideologically driven, and that's the point. Yes. These things might only be very minor, sort of, in the moment when the headline comes out and you go, oh, that's a bit odd, but never mind. You add it all up. It's deliberately destructive because it's what they believe to be morally right. Nothing actually to do with what's in the financial best interests of the country or anything like that. It's what they feel inside is the right thing to do. Ever thus has it been.
Absolutely extraordinary stuff. It is Friday, of course, and we are doing the last show before Christmas, and even if we weren't doing the last show before Christmas, it would be Gaff Friday. We're going to play a gaff right now. This one, because it's been requested by Pat. Please, 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 says Pat, can we see the fantastic Mike Graham losing it over the racist dogs again? Merry Christmas to all of you. Let's have a look. Dogs are racist, according to the Welsh Labour Party. Deary me. Welcome to Britain. It's Friday, thank God. We can all have a couple of days off, and we'll be bringing you more and more over the course of the next few hours, and clearly loads of gaffes, of course, as well, from the home of common sense. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Sorry. I can't help it. Apparently, breaking news. The economy has grown by 0.1%. I'm sorry, between July and September, according to the Office for National Statistics. The world's gone completely mad. Those were the good old days, of course, when growth was at least 0.1%.
A titanic 0.1%.
Brilliant. But now, of course, we got the Bank of England today saying there's zero growth. It's not even 0.1%. It's actually 0.0% now. Thanks, Rachel.
I can't wait for this, though. It'll be spun eventually as, rejoice, comrades. We've been liberated from the tyranny of economic growth.
Exactly.
The market no longer has a hold over us.
Growth isn't everything. Have a look at this. This is Matt, who got in touch with us yesterday because we were asking for. We weren't actually asking for it, but it sort of happened. People started singing songs, rewriting lyrics of Christmas carols and all that. This is Matt's voice note about Sir Keir Starmer.
It's beginning to fall apart for Starmer. Everywhere you stroll, take a look in at number 10. It's chaos once again, as they're sucked in through their imaginary black hole. It's beginning to fall apart for Starmer. The toolmaker's son knew such a bore. And the most likely thing you'll see is the policeman that will be at your own front door.
Very good. Matt, thank you very much indeed. We'll take some more of that. We're here till 10 o'clock. Benedict Spencer's here as well. We're going to be talking about some of the other stories around. Also, of course, the BBC still refusing to play that song, the chart-topping song, about it will be freezing this Christmas. For some reason, the BBC don't want to play it. Why? What's going on with that? This is Talk.
We're talking about someone here who is a serious crime boss, dealing in drugs. What about the families which have suffered as a result of his activities? And it's been claimed that if he was to return to Turkey, he may well suffer persecution. An immigration tribunal heard that he had returned to his homeland at 8 separate occasions. We have a dysfunctional asylum system, and we also have a human rights framework which doesn't prioritise the safety and security of the law-abiding British public.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 26 minutes past 6. It is Friday, of course. It is, what, December the 20th? So 4 days to go until Christmas properly gets underway. Many of you are sending me messages saying you've already stopped working for Christmas, and because it's on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, an awful lot of you won't be bothering to travel next week. I don't blame you. By the way, the strikes that are going on Avanti West Coast trains will kick in on, I think, Saturday. So I think Sunday and Monday, 22nd and 23rd, they're not going to be running trains. Brilliant, isn't it? And then they're not going to be running trains on New Year's Eve, and then they're going to be striking every single Sunday from January to May. You know, and that's what you get when you get a Labour government. Let's get a voice note from Bernie with some festive cheer.
I'm fearing of a black Christmas where all the pensioners are cold. With less food on the table, I regret they'll not be able to sustain their chance of growing old.
Brilliant. I tell you, I mean, I don't know about you, Benedict, but people have become so inspired by this useless government that they've actually started creating, you know, memes, creating songs, poems. I think it's showing Britain in a great light, this.
It is, although it does further show up the poor state of BBC comedy in this country.
Yes.
That actually all you have to do is just go, what's your creative best effort?
Yeah.
And it will be better than whatever comes up on, for instance, Have I Got News for You?
Have I Got News for You,
But it's, as you say, it's nice that everybody's battening down the hatches for the winter you might as well laugh at it because it's not going to get any better.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, I started doing this a few weeks ago where I thought, you know, you can't just wake up every day and be angry because they're so bad, they're so ridiculous that it's actually worth laughing about because it makes you feel better. And in the end, we are being united by this government against them, which has got to be a good thing. Now, let's talk about Joe Biden, because things could be worse. Over in the United States of America, the Wall Street Journal, which is a sister organisation to us, they've got an office here in News UK, have exposed what they call a years-long cover-up that also saw the administration in the United States gaslighting those who dared to claim that Joe Biden's abilities had somehow deteriorated since he was Barack Obama's vice president. They basically said they've tried to hide Joe Biden's rapidly diminishing mental condition from the public for his entire presidency. Basically saying he was gaga from day one.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by this because I remember watching him during the debates 4 years ago.
Here he is falling asleep, by the way.
And thinking he is not the man that he was even a couple of months before. It was very clear that he was... So I remember this at the time. People were saying during that election, he's not all there. And something is going on here. And it was the whole sort of, you know, wandering towards the wrong door or having to be sort of... And, you know, to be fair,
confused.
Yeah, he did decline massively after the election. It had been relatively slow, but the telltale signs were absolutely there. So I'm not surprised at all to discover that there was something of an active attempt to cover this up. I mean, for heaven's sake, they did it right up until this election, right up until it was impossible to hide on national television during a debate. And I mean, when Trump said himself, I don't know what he said, I don't think even he knows what he said, and Biden just looked around and go, and that was the moment where it was kind of like, well, I think the game really is up here now. So yeah, not surprised at all. I'm also not surprised, frankly, at the.
But it's
at
shocking,
the
really.
Of it.
But it's shocking to think that because it's not so much the fact that Biden had to kind of become too sort of dementia-riddled to do his job. It's the fact that they covered it up, and that's the thing that I think we should be very worried about. Let's have a look at what he said once when he was talking about Kamala Harris.
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be Vice President because I think she was not qualified to be President. So let's start there. Number one. The fact is that the consideration is that I think I'm the most qualified person to run for president. I beat him once, and I will beat him again.
No, you won't, actually, Joe, as it turns out, because one, you didn't run, and two, you didn't beat him. So that's 2-0, I'm afraid. And also he referred to Vice President Trump, who he picked instead of Vice President Kamala Harris.
Do you remember when he was stood next to Volodymyr Zelensky and he's saying he's pledging his support to President Putin?
Yeah.
And Zelensky's just stood there going, I'm sorry, what?
I know. I mean, there are gaffes and there are gaffes.
Yeah.
And that's just the beginning. We're going to play loads of them. In fact, if you can remember any that you want us to replay. We've got the Putin one. Should we have a look? All right, let's go. And that's just a little compilation of some of the things that happened during his presidency. We should also remember, by the way, that Keir Starmer went over to see him. Do you remember? Shortly before he dropped out of the race, only to return to tell us, actually, everyone said, how's Joe Biden? He went, absolutely brilliant. He's fine. He's got absolutely no cognitive issues, and he will be the next president of the United States of America. About 4 days later, Biden pulled out of the race.
I mean, the whole thing is just the fact that Starmer was prepared to go along with it as well, rather than actually. I know he probably wouldn't have won him many friends, but the sensible thing would have actually been either to just not answer that question, or actually give a slightly more accurate appraisal of the situation. I know it's not like the most highbrow comedy there, but the fact that when he was at that podium and he turned to nobody and stuck his hand out, you know, hoping to shake someone's hand, you're just thinking, oh, come on. Like, I mean, and Starmer should be able to see what we can all see. We're not in the United States. We're not plugged into that kind of Democratic Party.
This is what annoys me so much about this current Labour government, is that they're attempting to talk to us as if we're idiots. You know, they say things which we clearly can see are not true. It's like them saying, you know, look over here, look at this amazing car that I've just brought you, and it's a bike. And you're going, actually, it's not a car.
Well...
and they're going, no, it's definitely a car.
What was it last week? Was it Angela Rayner, who was asked, I think it was by Trevor Phillips, about... social housing. We don't have enough social housing. All right, but what about all of these migrants? Oh, well, there's not a shortage of social housing. And you kind of sat there going, and Trevor Phillips...
And there's plenty of housing.
Yeah, you hear his voice going, hang on, what are you talking about? This is actually nuts. But she just doubled down.
Just kept saying it.
Yeah,
well, we had Jim McMahon, who I didn't even know existed before this week, who's apparently the devolution minister. We had him on during the week, who couldn't answer a question and just kept talking at me as if he thought if I just keep talking and babbling, he won't be able to get a question in. It's like, what's the point of coming on TV? Why are you bothering to do it? Sean in Norfolk says this: Merry Christmas, Mike and Benedict. I can't wait for 2025 and more Keith, Stalin and gang making us poorer and more fed up. Looking forward to Plank of the Year. I think the winner is probably an odds-on favourite. I think you're probably right, Sean. You will find out who's won it. This is Gaff Friday, of course. It's a special Christmas Gaffs Friday. Here's one when I accidentally played a piece of music that I didn't know I was going to do.
We're worrying about energy bills, we're worrying about food, we're worrying about fuel. So as part of the survey, we also found that people...
I couldn't stop it. I don't know why it started playing. And it wasn't even because I'd been playing it before. But it was the theme from Titanic, something started playing on my phone.
It's the fact that there's a story about Thames water that just adds to it perfectly.
Thames Water, there's a story. We've still got stories about them in the papers this morning. Apparently there's a whole load of fat cats who are getting loads and loads and loads of money on the basis that they've done such a bad job. They've had to cover it up by paying themselves massive bonuses. Yesterday we heard that we're going to be putting up prices once again by minimum 36% a year, possibly bigger than that in some cases. I mean, I fail to understand. Oh, here we go. Furious rip-off, 36% hike in water bills. And here's the fat cat bosses making millions as failing firms dump sewage. And they're picking on one particular guy, Chris Weston, who's the chief executive of Thames Water. He accepted £195,000 of a bonus for the first 3 months of the year.
Yeah. I mean
incredible, isn't it?
It is. The sewage thing always slightly gets to me, though. This has become a particular bugbear because it's always picked up, it's often very picked up by Remainers as a sign of, the dangers of deregulation now that we've left the European Union. Our rivers are not, in fact, any more dirty than they used to be. We've simply improved the mechanisms and the regularity by which we actually measure how much sewage there is. I don't know if this has come as a shock to people. Your sewage doesn't just stay in your lavatory. It has to go somewhere, and very often it goes into the river. We actually have some of the world's cleanest rivers. Again, real curveball to a lot of people who are insistent that Brexit is poisoning everything and that you can't swim in the sea, or that you can't swim in your room. And it's all the Tories' fault. Well, that's exactly the thing. Everything is the Tories' fault. This happened under their watch. There are so many issues with water in this country. The leaking pipes, the amount of water that we waste by the fact that we still have Victorian pipes, that water companies have not spent money updating because they're giving themselves dividends, or the fact that we don't dredge our rivers. Lots of things you can complain about. But the sewage thing, that's a proper kind of... I know. I mean,
I've actually watched, believe it or not, as the improvements have been made, because I walked the dog that I've got down in Bexhill Beach, and I was there. I think it was probably after the terrible disaster of last spring. I think it was when there was lots of heavy rain and lots of heavy water. And Bexhill was one of those horrible scenes where there was that sort of brown splurge going all into the sea. And they've actually put a new pipe in, and I was down there watching them do it. And so now apparently that's been improved. So there are some improvements being made. I'm not defending the water industry, because I think the water industry is a complete disaster in this country, but it has been for many a year. And it's not the Tories' fault, it's everybody's fault.
Oh, of course. We're talking, we are talking about infrastructure that's not been updated for, I mean, in some cases, centuries. That's part of the problem, is that it's still the same Victorian piping. And, to be fair, a lot of it was quite good. That's why it lasted as long as it did. But, we are in a very fortunate position because we get that much rain and we have that much natural water resources that we can get away with actually not being very good at maintaining these things. But as with many things in this country, after a while it begins to pile up, and now you get into the situation where people's bills are going to be going up, frankly, a pretty catastrophic amount in a very short space of time. Now, water companies would argue that it's not been keeping pace with inflation anyway, which is a fair point. But nonetheless, it's just another of those things that you kind of look there and, some people will say it's the Tories, some people will say it's the fault of the companies, some people will say it's the fault of the actual regulation. It's just a general sense of malaise. I mean, I'd really like to know what is going particularly well, apart from the passport office, which is very good. It's just a general sense of decline and a failure to uphold standards. And also vision.
And to put up with it as well, because people just kind of go, well, doesn't really work.
It is a sign of quite how placid we are, actually, that we put up with an awful lot that I think people would not actually have expected us to put up with. Before COVID, and when people were talking about the lockdown regulations that we're going to be bringing in, and people were saying people will never put up with that, but they absolutely did, and they put up with an awful lot that they shouldn't have done, and I think that's still being reflected now. It's being reflected in the fact that the Labour government is lying through its teeth to people, is driving us over a cliff, and people are just going, well, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? What did you expect? Let's get a voice note from Dale, who's got some festive cheer.
We wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a crappy 5 years. Bad tidings we'll bring from summer through spring. We wish you a Merry Christmas, we'll lie through the years.
Very true. Dale, well played. Very well done indeed. Morning, Mike, says Eric. The BBC will still not play the Starmer song. No, they won't, but we'll play it. We'll play it coming up throughout the course of the show. Don't worry. Freezing this Christmas. Nobody hates Keir Starmer more than the rest of the country. The man surely cannot last 5 years. This is Morning Glory. Back after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 6:42. We're here, of course, until 10 this morning. This is the last show we're going to do before Christmas. I don't want you to be in any way discouraged by the fact that we're taking some time off. It's just that every now and again you do have to go and spend some time with the family. Otherwise you get a bit worked up. How about this from Winston, who says, "Morning, Mike. Thanks for keeping me sane. Again this year, I do wonder where we would be without channels like Talk. Imagine the rubbish they'd be spouting if nobody was around to challenge their narrative." Absolutely right. I do wonder about that. Now, it's Gaff Time Friday. Some of you have been asking for a repeat, please, of the Ian Collins attempt to interview a farmer during the recent protest here in London.
William, good to have you with us. I know it's busy down there. You've moved to a place where you can hear us and we can hear you. Just give us a sense of the atmosphere and what's happening there today.
The solution to this, we can answer, and we have asked for a meeting with the Chancellor. All the organisations involved today have requested a meeting with Chancellor Reeves, and if she's willing to meet us and listen...
Listen, we're gonna try and get
them well and good, but if not, then we have other plans going forward.
Listen, William, we are gonna try and get you, because in the spirit of protest, obviously there's a lot of animated farmers in trucks and tractors.
That was the farmers do the crazy frog, I think, basically. You know.
To his credit, Ian keeps his composure. Because when I heard it, it was just, I was
amazing.
Gone. Yeah.
Now, of course, yesterday, Keir Starmer made his own gaffe, because in Prime Minister's Questions, we picked up a bit of a Keir stutter, a Starmer stutter. Have a listen to this. I mean, this is really like a malfunctioning robot. It really is incredible. Now, we're going to play a little bit later on as well the music from Freezing This Christmas, because the BBC continue to fail to play it. But let's talk about Tulip Sadiq, because this story kind of has slightly slipped under the radar because there's been so much else going on. But this is the Labour minister who's been hired specifically by Keir Starmer to be a sort of anti-corruption person, right? And I mean, this is not so much a gaffe, it's just another blunder by Keir Starmer. Tell us why it's ironic.
I mean, there have been stories about Tulip Sadiq and her family for a very long time, because, of course, she is, I think, the niece of the recently ousted leader of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, who was ousted in... shall we say, inauspicious circumstances.
Indeed.
She was literally chased out of town by an angry mob. A lot of people died.
Right.
People have been very upset about how it's been run.
Suitcases of money were being removed.
On the way to the airport, hoping that, you know, that the Reds don't stop you at a checkpoint, that sort of thing. But she has been named in an inquiry that the new regime in Bangladesh has launched into, wait for it, embezzlement. So Labour's corruption czar, always an unfortunate name. I think this is to do with a nuclear power plant, which was worth, let me just read, 10 billion, which was signed with, with Russia. As you can see here, here's a photograph of her in the Times, if anybody wants to look, of her stood smiling next to Vladimir Putin.
It's incredible, isn't it? Well, I said this yesterday, like, when Keir Starmer was appointing various people to his cabinet, you would have thought in Louise Haig's case, for example, he might have asked, have you got any convictions for fraud or anything like that we should worry about, which he didn't do? Also, I'm assuming if you're asking somebody to become your new anti-corruption minister, you might say, have you got any embarrassing photographs of you with any sort of dictators around the world, like Vladimir Putin, that you might want to tell us about?
Or even your own aunt.
Yes.
I mean, there have been complaints about her party, the Awami League, for decades, and there have been stories about Tulip Sadiq, various relatives of hers, and corruption for some time. So, as you say, the fact that this was just sort of waved through as there couldn't possibly be a bad outcome here. I mean, what is going on with the judgment of these people?
Yeah, I know. And they just seem to think that that's all going to just wash over everybody and nobody's going to care. Well, everybody cares, because once the build-up of this kind of sleaze becomes, you know, a distraction, surely to God, they'll have to start losing more people. I mean, she'll probably not last out the year, I wouldn't have thought. I don't mean this year, I mean like the next year. Because in the end, there'll be so much focus on her auntie, who may indeed still yet be indicted by the Bangladeshi authorities because she seems to have removed quite a lot of money from the country's coffers,
case, isn't it?
Yeah.
When people like this suddenly vanish and you think, where's all the money?
Right.
Oh, it's in Switzerland.
Yeah,
How did it get there?
Well, did you not see the story the other day? Bashar al-Assad has apparently shifted something like 50 billion quid into an HSBC account in London, which we're apparently now attempting to get our hands on. I don't know what we're going to do with it, but we'd like to keep it, please. Thank you very much.
Well, what we'll do is we'll put it in the British Museum, then we'll give it back after a couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely right. Reparations, perhaps.
Yeah.
Front page of the Daily Telegraph, chart-topping anti-Labour hit is being silenced by the BBC. We were talking about this the other day. Freezing this Christmas. We're going to be talking to Chris Middleton coming up a little bit later on. He's written the song himself. He's a freelance marketer and writer rather. His band is called Sistama and the Granny Harmers. I think we've got a little clip of it because we'll play it even if the BBC won't.
It'll be freezing this Christmas while our money goes abroad. It'll be freezing this Christmas. Rachel Reeves is a fraud. It'll be cold, so cold, without fuel at home this Christmas.
Well, I mean, I don't know what the tenet of the show is going to be today, but I've got a feeling we're going to be making fun of Keir Starmer for about another 3.5 hours. It is 6:48. Benedict Spencer's here. We're still looking at the stories in the papers. We haven't mentioned yet the big story that all of them have gone massively on. The woman in France who has watched her husband being sentenced to 20 years in prison yesterday for organising the mass raping of her. I don't really want to talk about it, to be honest, but, we will mention it. It's coming up to 10 minutes to 7. We'll be back after this.
History report says police simply were unprepared for the scale of the disorder that broke out. They need to be better prepared. Police officers sent onto the streets without even proper riot gear. What do you make of that lack of prep?
Absolutely everybody knew there was likely to be riots following the deaths and the murders in Southport this summer. But of course, the police were so busy probably investigating the landlord of the Saracen's Head pub. Yes. For promoting hate with his pub sign than actually looking at genuine police intelligence. This is where policing's gone entirely wrong.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:52. I'm here, of course, until 10 o'clock for glorious hours of Morning Glory every single weekday morning from 6 a.m. Benedict Spencer's here as well. Glenn from Leeds says, it's the Starmer Stammer. That farmer's truck sounded like he was beeping the Wenger boys. Yeah, absolutely right. It did sound like that. We've got a new gaff as well. This is what we do on a Friday, but we're sort of supercharging it today because it's the last show before Christmas. If there's anything that you remember you'd like to see, do let us know. 0344 499 1000. Here's one from Jeremy Kyle.
You heard Ivor and his song for drive time. This is Arrival. Adam in Burnley, go.
Just thought I'd give people a snapshot of the country, what we're living in at the moment. I've had 3 jobs this week, and the first job was a single mom.
Sorry, let's just rewind. That was written by Ryan, so you've made a massive cock up there on your birthday, yeah? This is absolutely down to you. Come in here. Just come here. Come on. Because it's your birthday and it's important. It's not humiliation. I don't mind looking an idiot. Come here. What happened there, birthday boy? What? Here he is. Let's get him on camera. Come on. This is look at that. See how tall he is? Can you just get down here? What happened then?
I put the wrong voice note in the folder and then Amy played it.
Did she?
Yeah.
Happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you very much.
You're going out with your wife tonight?
Yeah, I can't wait to get there. And you'll probably give me your sore throat.
Well, I think that what will happen is before the end of the show, you'll have to do it and you won't be able to go out. Anyway, there we go.
And there we are. No humiliation on this show for the producers and the team because they don't make those kind of mistakes. By the way, if any of you are wondering what's going on behind me, you might know that over the course of this week we've been having a go at the head of graphics who refused, point blank, to come up with anything better than a few snowflakes coming down on the normal situation behind me. So now we've got a beautiful warm room with a fire and with snow coming in as well, a Christmas tree and all of that. Benedict Spencer's here. Let's talk about potholes and let's talk about Gilbert and Sullivan. Now, Gilbert and Sullivan, as far as I know, is not a particularly frightening experience when you go and see it. Normally speaking, I'm not a massive fan of it, but it is pretty British, isn't it?
It is. And so, of course, being pretty British, it's deeply offensive to anybody who might happen across it. And everybody needs to be warned in advance of the terrible triggering effects that it's going to have on them. I can't remember the last time I actually even listened to Gilbert and Sullivan, let alone watch it.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to me to be the sort of thing that would attract a modern, particularly young or even a particularly offended audience. It seems to be the sort of thing that actually would appeal to people who are quite well adjusted in life and understand context. And
have gone perhaps to a sort of an open-air concert where somebody's going to do the Pirates of Penzance and they're having the sort of Stilton and champagne picnic.
Yes, it's about as placid a sort of a setting as you can kind of think. But
it really is.
These are the days where absolutely anything that involves a Union Jack must be condemned.
So there's trigger warnings now, right?
Yeah, that's right. Alongside, of course, the countryside, which is racist, and dogs, which are racist.
And it
Gilbert
says,
and Sullivan is very dangerous.
A piece in the Mail, it says, this production, this is what the warning says, this production contains references to alcohol misuse and mild violence. Now, apparently the alcohol misuse involves somebody pouring a glass of sherry and giving it to someone. It's hardly alcohol misuse, is it?
It's also the sort of thing that you just kind of think, does anybody drink sherry these days? This is the average person.
I know.
Average person who's going to be sort of worried about this think, oh, good Lord, sherry, that's my go-to.
Yes.
That's
very,
really upset. Very odd. But
very
mild hints of violence.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty certain, actually, that today we're all pretty desensitised to mild violence. You know, you turn on the television, everything's sort of a murder mystery and pretty graphically done. That's what every, don't want to sound like I'm very old, but every video game is incredibly violent. Every film is very violent. It's fine. People are aware that violence is a thing.
Somebody was drawing the comparison earlier on this month. I was reading how when, Baby It's Cold Outside was banned because apparently it sounded a bit like the man was putting pressure on the woman to sleep with him. And yet there were other songs which were far more, shall we say, graphic about words which probably we can't even say at this time of the morning, and they were fine.
Yeah,
that was okay.
I know the thing that you're referencing.
It was a comedian, I think.
And and his entire thing was he just took the two sets of lyrics and he just read them out alongside each other.
Right.
And one is incredibly mild, and the other is you kind of sat there going, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
how did this get...
I know.
Who put this out there?
And it probably gets played on the BBC, unlike the song about Keir Starmer and all of that. Potholes, let's talk about those, because people talk about those on this show a lot. £1.6 billion the government have found. For a government that doesn't have any money, they do find it when they want to, don't they? £1.6 billion apparently has been found to spend on 7 million potholes. Keir Starmer's even written a piece in The Sun in which he says, motorists deserve the fact that we're going to do this because it's the right thing to do. This government was elected to deliver change. It's not really what we had in mind, is it?
I mean, I tell you what, motorists deserve this thing. After all the things that motorists have been put through,
we also deserve, as motorists, not to be charged every single time we go anywhere.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the way that this government and of course previous governments have absolutely hammered motorists, and in London, I think people know that more than anywhere else.
Yes.
But it's coming everywhere else. Wales, you can only go 20 miles per hour in case you hit a sheep.
Yeah.
You know, there are many things, frankly, that have really hit motorists very hard.
I guess you hit somebody interfering with a sheep.
Exactly. So to say, but don't worry, now we're going to fill in the potholes so that whilst you're watching somebody doing that with a sheep, you won't have your vision shown bumped or anything. Oh, thank you so much.
I know.
That's just what we all needed.
Oh, man, unbelievable. How about this from Joe in Ilford? I think this is a poem, so I'm going to try and read it in the spirit to which it was written. Morning, Mike. In the year of 2024, things got worse than ever before. The Tories were out, Labour got in, wrecked the lives of the old, the young and the farmers. Oh, that doesn't rhyme. The employers, the workers, but not Sir Keir Starmer. All we can do now is look at the mess. Let's grin, have a cuppa, and F all the stress. Well, it's sort of a poem. Very well done, Joe. Thank you very much indeed.
There we go.
I mean, the numbers of people that I run into now, sort of everywhere, who are just in despair. They just kind of hang their heads and, you know, and put their heads in their hands because they can't quite believe, as I can't quite believe, how bad all of this is.
The number of people who are also moving abroad. I was, not to fall into the stereotype of what kind of a person I am, I went to see my tailor yesterday.
Yeah.
And she was talking to me about the number of people that she knows, both colleagues but also customers or just friends who are moving to the Gulf, who are moving to America, who have just decided, I've had enough, that's it, we're packing up shop. And it's not just her, it's many other friends who say, what's curious is it's sort of never your immediate friends, but it's the friend of the friend.
But it's the sort of people that don't have to be here. If you're running an online business, you can run it from somewhere else. If you can not physically have to go somewhere to work, you can do it from somewhere else.
It is the flight of the, we refer to them as the slightly upwardly mobile, the high net worth individual, the people that you need to drive growth, the people whose wealth you need to be invested in paying people's wages in this country. They are the ones who are going, there is nothing for me here. I'm going to sit it out for the next 5 years somewhere else. I'm going to move my money. This was not essential. Lots of businesses, lots of people, the Financial Times backed Labour at the last election, and they have subsequently gone out and gone, hang on, what on earth is going on here? There were lots of people who were prepared to say, well, let's give them the chance. They're promising grown-up attitude to the economy. Let's see what they have to do. And they are really
And the Bank of England has officially said this morning that Rachel Reeves has killed growth in this country. So brilliant. Well done, Rachel. We'll see you after this.
I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
I have just returned from Buckingham Palace to form the next government of this great nation.
Take a look at what happened.
I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack.
The time has come, and this surely is England's time. Williams, who scores, and Spain lead. The shot from distance is in. It is Cole Palmer. Low ball in on the far ball, slides it in.
An absolute killer of a goal.
I agree with the protest, but I don't think the violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was the answer at all.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Liberal left couldn't understand that this man could be anything other than the great newsreader, a man of integrity.
Is it possible in any way, shape or form that Keir Starmer didn't know about these facts about the suspect in Southport?
I find it extraordinary that he wouldn't know. It seems that the public has not been told the truth.
No, there's nothing like an American election, I have to say. North Dakota has gone red, South Dakota's red, Texas is red.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason.
Bloomberg UK reporting Ukraine has made the first long-range missile strike inside of Russia. These are the missiles that Biden has...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 2 minutes past 7. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. Of course, we are here for 4 glorious hours every single weekday morning from 6 a.m. You don't want to miss it. It's a little bit chilly out there today. I don't know what the weather forecast is for the weekend, but it is the last weekend before Christmas. We're literally 4 days away from Christmas Eve. According to The Sun, people are going to spend £20 million in the next few days getting last-minute Christmas presents. If that's you, we'd love to hear from you. We do, of course, know what you want to say to us. We've had some incredible contacts with you over the course of the last few days. Some amazing songs, amazing, pieces of creative writing, some poems, all sorts of things. Most of them anti-Sir Keir Starmer because he's having such a bad time. He really is the Grinch that stole Christmas because an awful lot of people are going to have a miserable time. According to the front page of the Times today, the Bank of England says the budget has left us with zero growth, thanks to Rachel Reeves, the first woman Chancellor, who has made a complete dog's breakfast of all of it. There's nothing good coming out of Rachel Reeves' office, I'm afraid. Let's get a montage of your thoughts.
Morning, Mike. Elaine here, staying in the beautiful city of York.
Morning, mate. Calling from Ayrshire here.
Morning, Mike. I'm fuming this morning.
Morning, Mike. Simon in North Wales.
Hi, Mike. Jane from Kidderminster here. Oh, just found a hairdryer, Mike. Maybe we can fix the foundation.
Fix the foundations, yes. Apparently, Keir Starmer appeared in front of a committee yesterday, the liaison committee in the Houses of Parliament, where he was asked whether he had any regrets. And guess what? He said he didn't. Well, I'll tell you what, we've got a lot of regrets. Lots of people who voted for him wish they bleeding well hadn't. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Coming up, we're going to be talking to Alan Tolhurst, chief reporter at Politics Home. We'll get his view on the week that has just gone for Keir Starmer. Not a great week, it has to be said, because they kicked it all off with another sort of massive self-harming problem with the waspy women and their pension rights, right? Instead of actually just going along with what they said they would do, they completely reversed what they said they would do and once again have caused a massive problem. Meanwhile, the BBC still won't play Freezing This Christmas, that new song that's caught everybody on the hop and which is probably going to be the Christmas #1. Why won't the BBC play a song just because it's anti-Keir Starmer? What is wrong with them? 0344 499 1000. Also, we're going to be talking about Joe Biden. The Wall Street Journal's done a study, an investigation into what happened with Joe Biden inside the White House over the last 4 years, and they've worked out that actually he was gaga from the very beginning. And they say that the entire sort of cover-up is actually worse than anything Joe Biden has ever done as President of the United States of America. 0344 499 1000. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Now, lots of you have got much to say. Many of you have got great messages that you've sent in. We've got some great voice notes as well. Graham from Bushy says, we have Elf on the shelf, but what is Starmer's shelf life? He could be out by next Christmas. I think that's true. Tracy says, morning, Mike. I need to say your show is hilarious. Thanks, and Merry Christmas to you and your team. Well, it doesn't happen just because of a piece of magic. There's an awful lot of people involved in this project, Morning Glory, who deserve as much praise as I do. They've all done a brilliant job over the course of the last few months. I mean, we've always been in slightly slightly longer than Keir Starmer, actually. We started, I think, on April the 26th, and we have got a much bigger approval rating than he's ever going to see. I can tell you that for sure. Darren the Trucker says, by the way, Mike, he says, regarding the Avanti West Coast train strikes, these militant drivers are no longer targeting their employers. They are targeting their passengers by making things very difficult for them. They need to realise that it's the passengers who pay their wages. Absolutely right. They are, of course, striking on the 22nd, the 23rd of December, which is just a couple of days away. They're striking on the 31st of December, which is New Year's Eve. They're also going to be striking every single Sunday between January the 12th and the 25th of May. Can you believe it? I mean, so every single Sunday, if you're going to a football match, if you're going to visit your relatives, you're going to see your girlfriend, you're going to see your boyfriend, whatever it is you're going to do on a train, on a Sunday, on the train line that runs between London and Manchester, and I think points beyond up to Scotland, you're going to have a problem. I think that is an absolute disgrace, and it's testament to why Labour never actually gets to grips with the unions, because the reason why Avanti are going on strike is they know they'll get what they want from the Labour government. Absolutely extraordinary. 0344 499 1000. Let's talk to Alan Tolhurst, Chief Reporter at Politics Home. Alan, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Greetings of the season. I suppose we can do the thing that we would normally be doing, I suppose, in a week from now, looking back on Keir Starmer's kind of, report card, giving him marks out of 10. I'm assuming that you, like many other commentators, would say it hasn't been the greatest of starts for this Prime Minister, has it?
No, I think when the liaison committee finished up their hearing yesterday and Starmer knew that he'd kind of finished what he had to do in terms of parliamentary stuff ahead of Christmas, I think he was probably quite relieved to get out of Parliament. I think it's not been the best few months for him, and yeah, I think he's I think of his report card would probably say must do better.
Must do better. Yeah, we were expecting a little bit better than this. Let's have a look at what he actually said in front of the parliamentary liaison committee yesterday.
Is there anything that you would do differently if you were starting out now, knowing what you know?
No, we had to do tough stuff. We're getting on with it, and I'm very pleased to be delivering from a position of power rather than going around the division lobbies losing every night. I've had too much of that.
Well, thank you very much.
As ever, he didn't quite answer the question, because he must have some regrets. He must wish that things had turned out slightly differently, even in terms of the way that people have sort of perceived what he's doing. And he keeps talking about delivering things. He was asked this question by Harry Cole the other day when he was in Estonia, have you made any mistakes? And he kept saying, well, the thing is, we're working towards getting people to feel like they're better off, which they're not. And then he said, we're working towards getting the waiting list down in the NHS, which they're not doing. I mean, I don't know whether he's delusional when he says, we're delivering this. Because what is he delivering exactly?
Well, I think it's quite funny because, it's a sort of answer that if Boris Johnson had delivered that sort of answer and said, no, there's nothing I would do differently, I'm happy with every single decision I've made, no regrets, then when Keir Starmer was opposition leader, he'd have had a right go at him and called him delusional and unable to see the failure of his ways. So it's quite interesting that when he sits in that chair, he's suddenly doing the complete opposite, and he's suddenly saying that as well. But yeah, I think I don't think Labour have actually got as bad a story to tell as some people think. I think they have actually been getting on with quite a lot of stuff. They've just been quite bad, I think, at kind of telling the story of what they've been doing over the past 6 months, and they've allowed kind of the narrative to be taken over by things like the winter fuel allowance, which took place kind of in a bit of a vacuum over the summer. Obviously, the budget was overshadowed by, quite a small part of it, which was this farmers, in the agricultural inheritance stuff, and that overshadowed what actually was a really wide-ranging, massive kind of, I think we'll look back and think it's one of the most important budgets, over the past sort of 20 years. And it allowed a lot of things to be kind of overtaken by the very small things. Assisted dying is not even part of their manifesto, not something that they were going to be pushing through. And that's taken over a huge amount of time in terms of, the political discussion. So they've not really been able to kind of control the narrative and set the agenda, I think, in the way they would want to as a government, especially a very powerful government as this one is. And they've kind of allowed things, other stuff to kind of take over, and that's why it looks a bit like they're still on the back foot as we head into Christmas.
But don't you think they were slightly taken aback as well by the reaction to the budget, because they obviously had worked on it and they'd obviously thought that this is going to be great, everyone's going to be going, this is fantastic, look at what they're doing, they're recalibrating the economy, they're making sure that fairness is now the watchword as opposed to allowing loads of rich people to get richer and loads of poor people to get poorer. But this morning on the front page of the Times, I mean, you say it's an important budget, front page of the Times, Andrew Bailey, the Governor of the Bank of England, basically says the economy is stagnating because of the budget. And so there is zero growth, not only now, but on the horizon for the next several months and possibly all of next year.
Yeah, no, completely. It's a pretty unhelpful intervention by Andrew Bailey on that, and he, you know, the bank, you know, specifically highlight one of the key measures that was part of the budget, which was this increase in employers' national insurance contribution. And as the government, I think, were trying to be a bit too clever, because obviously they'd made this big commitment. They weren't going to raise income tax, national insurance, or VAT on working people, so they sort of introduced it the other way around by doing it at the back end on employers. And I think, yeah, you're right. It's a bit naive to think that wouldn't have a big impact on businesses, especially when business is so key to driving economic growth. And as a result, we're seeing pretty stagnant economic growth and forecasts of continued stagnant growth. And we know how important everything is. You know, Richard Roos talks about how important growth is to everything they want to do.
But wouldn't that mean that if they were to be sensible, if they were to be an honest government, they would actually put their hands up and go, do you know what, this has actually not worked as well as we thought it would work, and therefore we might have been wrong about it? Instead of just blithely going on and saying that they haven't got any regrets and that, you know, they wouldn't do anything differently and everything's going well, we're delivering for the people. You know, it's nonsense, it's BS, and people aren't interested in hearing lies, basically.
Yeah, and I think actually politicians of all stripes are always pretty kind of wary of doing U-turns. I think that a U-turn is a sign of weakness, and sometimes it can look bad. But I think most of the time, if you say, look, we tried something, it didn't work, we didn't have all the information at the time, we didn't know how people were going to respond to it, we've seen how it's landed, we're going to change tack and do something different. You know, I think people would probably respect that a lot more. I think sometimes. I think politicians are very scared, and you know, just Labour, I think previous governments as well. But it's a continued trend, and I think, you know, obviously, I think they'd be loath to change something like the national insurance contribution because it has such a big impact. It's going to garner so much more money for the Treasury that it would kind of put a big dent in their spending plans. But I think on other things, I think they should be a bit more willing to say, you know, look, we're a new government, we've been out of power for a long time, we're new to this, we're not going to get everything right, and actually we are going to change tack on stuff. And instead standing in front of, you know, MPs and saying, I have zero regrets, I wouldn't change anything so far.
But what's going to happen over the next few months, though, Alan, is that jobs are going to be lost. People have said that they're going to be having to fire people. They're not going to be hiring anybody. Hiring's at an all-time low since 2009 because of the national insurance rise. And, you know, the state of the economy is only going to get more and more fragile as time goes on. So, I mean, it's not just about admitting that they got it wrong. It's about actually intervening to make sure the economy doesn't collapse altogether, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I was speaking to people around Labour who think that actually what they need to do is hold their nerve, that some of these are big changes and they're going to take a while to come through, and that it's going to be bumpy to begin with, but eventually things will smooth out and things will start to.
Well, no, you say that, but where's the evidence that the economy is going to improve? Where? In which part of the economy is there going to be any growth? There isn't.
Mike, I want to stress this is not my view. This is just what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I want your view, because you're telling me that, you know, things are going to kind of bottom out and it's all going to be fine in the end, and that may be what they believe. But I'm asking you, where do you see that happening? Because I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I think the big issue is businesses and how they do respond to it, because, as you say, there is perhaps a freeze on hiring at the moment, and there is obviously, I think they've clearly responded quite negatively to those changes in the budget. I think what they're going to want to see is some more other issues, other stuff coming from the Treasury before they kind of relent and actually think that, you know, they are willing to invest and spend that money and hire, because I think that the Treasury's got a better handle on stuff. I think that the kind of business confidence is, you know, Labour spent a long time in opposition trying to kind of win back business after the kind of the Corbyn years, and I think that some of that work was undone over the past 6 months. They're going to have to go and work again, I think, to convince business they do have all the answers, and that will help them kind of invest and kind of smooth over these kind of these tricky periods. But it's not going to be easy, and as you say, the indicators at the moment are not that it's going to happen, certainly in the short term. So there's kind of a long way to do. Obviously, we've got the spending review in the spring. Rachel Roos is not likely to give a spring budget, but she might have to give perhaps some sort of spring statement, I think, to maybe to calm some of those business concerns if we are to kind of see them kind of move be the engines of growth again in 2025.
So do you think they're going to have to, you know, cut taxes in the new year? Because it says here, growth forecasts that have come out today from the Bank of England and others, other economists, are a massive blow to Labour, which has pledged to improve living standards and make Britain the fastest growing economy in the G7 club of developed nations. But Labour have already said they're no longer chasing that particular dream because it's not attainable, right? And what we know is that companies are responding to the budget by increasing prices and cutting jobs. Well, that's not going to change unless they change the tax regimen, is it?
Yeah, I think it's tricky because I think Rachel Reeves does not want to go back and have another kind of full kind of fiscal event. I think in the spring, but I think there's probably going to have to be something around the spending review, around kind of those OBR, we'll do those projections. I think in the spring, I think they're perhaps going to have to be, if it's not kind of a full kind of economic fiscal event, I think there is perhaps going to have to be some sort of tweaks to some of those things. I think even if it's just to give a signal to business that they kind of understand those concerns and aren't just going to keep ploughing on, despite the fact that people are saying that it's harming what they want to do. I think
the trouble is, I don't think they do understand it. Let's have a look at what Keir Starmer said before Rachel Reeves actually delivered the budget, and look at the smile on his face as he says it.
It will also be the first budget delivered by a woman ever. That is a moment of pride. When Rachel Reeves stands up, she will be making history. And I can tell you, young women and girls across the country will be watching, they will look up, and they will notice.
Yeah, there's hordes of young women and girls going, whatever you do, don't become the next Chancellor of the Exchequer, because look what happened to Rachel Reeves. It's a bleeding disaster, And if she's representative of women doing that job, I'm afraid I don't want to be put in the same category. He's so obsessed with, women can be chancellors that he's forgotten that the job is actually more important than the gender.
Yeah, I've got to say that clip is quite cringy, isn't it?
It's awful.
Yeah.
I mean, who cares? He's almost sort of patronising in the extreme as well. It's like, who would have known? Even women can be Chancellor of the Exchequer. Well, so what? Why is that even important?
Yeah, and I think it's a slight overcompensation from Labour, because I think they always feel, they look over at the Conservatives who've had 3 female leaders, 3 female prime ministers, and Labour have never had a female leader. So I think that's why they're kind of over-indexing on the fact that they've had the first female chancellor, I think, because they've always felt that, it's kind of a bit of a blind spot for them. They've only ever elected men as their leader, and obviously they're meant to be the more progressive party. So I think that's why you hear a lot of this kind of stuff, and it does look a bit cringy. It's sort of like as if it was sort of, it does look as though she's not earned it. She's been given it because she's a woman, which is not true, but that's the way it seems. If you keep banging on about the fact that she's a woman delivering the budget, wouldn't it be more interesting to know what's in the budget than knowing more about the person?
And why should it be remarkable that somebody who is actually a female can do a job? It's really, I find it really, really ridiculous. But Alan, listen, have a good Christmas. Good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Alan Tolhurst, chief reporter from Politics Home. Let's get some festive cheer from Adam.
He's travelling everywhere. He's always flying in the skies. And people down below are counting all his lies. Merry Christmas, Mike, to you and all the team. Adam from Burnley. Bye.
From Burnley, well done. And that will be, of course, the remake of the Snowflake, right? Presumably. 0344 499 1000. Morning, Mike. Everyone going on about the snow in the studio. Well, we are on the outside looking into a cosy living room, says Sue. Thank you very much indeed. One from Jeff, who says, Mike, great show. 7 million potholes, £1.6 million to fix them. That's 30 pence a hole. Yeah, that's not going to do much, is it? As ever, the Labour government has underestimated the amount of money they're going to have to spend. Absolute plonkers. Here's one from Lisa, live from Cleveley's. Merry Christmas, Mike. Love you and your morning glory. We'll miss you next week. Lisa, I will miss you all as well. But don't worry, I'll be back the week after for some fun and japes before the new year. 0344 499 1000. Coming up, Stephen Wolf's going to join us. We're going to talk about a bearded illegal migrant who lied and pretended he was 18 in order to stay in the country and to be treated like a child. And guess what? He attacked a worker who worked at Wickes with a spirit level during a violent robbery. He's been jailed for 4 years. Thank God. I dare say he'll only do 1 and then he won't get deported. What he should do. This is Talk.
Is he best placed to be US ambassador to the US?
Do you know what I'm going to say, actually? I think Lord Mandelson is better placed than many others that they could have elected.
Nigel
not
Farage?
elected. Well, Farage is a difficult one, seeing as he is the leader of an opposition party, one that is probably going to do quite well in the next couple of years. Mandelson, I know we all dislike him for various different reasons, but he's not an idiot. I'll say that much, and he's quite a pragmatist compared to certainly the latest iteration of the Labour Party.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory 7:23. It is the 20th of December. It's Friday. It's Gaff Day, of course. This is what we do all the way through the show. We'll be playing you little mishaps that may have occurred on this show and maybe some other shows as well. Also, we'll be bringing you all the festive cheer that we can. So do keep sending us your voice notes. Some of you are singing to us, which is great. 0344 499 1000. We're going to talk to Stephen Wolfe in a minute, Director of the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity, because, of course, Keir Starmer has been talking about migration as well, talking about Shamima Begum, amongst other things. But let's get a voice note from Rowan.
Jingle bells, Labour smells, Starmer's flew away. Rayner mentions tax on second homes that she won't even pay. Hey, jingle bells, Labour smells, Lamb is just insane. I can't wait for Trump, Elon and Farage to save the UK.
Hey, very good, Red. 5, 4, 3. No, forget it. We're not even going to go there. Let's get a gaff from Kevin O'Sullivan.
Thursday all week. Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum.
How is he never ready for the start of his show? It starts at the same time every night. And every night there's a problem, right? He hasn't got his bag, hasn't got his computer, hasn't got his laptop, hasn't got his phone, hasn't plugged in his headphones, hasn't got his microphone on. Unbelievable. Kev, come on, man. Every day. It's the same time, 7 to 10. Crikey. Let's talk to Stephen Wolfe, Director of the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity. Stephen, very good morning to you.
Very good morning, man. How could it not be a good morning when you've got those gaffs and songs to liven?
I'll tell you what, the people of this nation are giving me great sort of joy, because the great thing about Britain is no matter how awful things are, people just see the funny side of it, and people are just absolutely detesting this Labour government and this useless Prime Minister that we've got. I don't think I can imagine anything worse than Keir Starmer. You know, he's talking as well yesterday about, you know, the things we're talking about this morning, saying national security will be the priority when he decides whether or not the likes of Shamima Begum will be allowed back into the country. Well, it'd be nice if national security was the priority for actually checking who the hell's coming in on a daily basis on the small boats, who we don't even know.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. But the one thing that you know about Keir, as soon as he says national security is a priority with Shamima Begum, it means I'm going to allow her to come back.
Yeah, I do worry about that, actually.
That's what he's bringing in.
Right.
Obviously, he isn't of national security. After all, this is a country that's allowed Abba Qatada to stay, despite being a Fatma Bletta, who is a big gangster. We just had a 70 guy who controlled 90%.
This is the Turkish guy, right, yesterday?
Yeah, and we had a 90% heroin importation, and we could deport him as well. I mean, this is where we got national security. But don't worry, we've got Article 8 of the European Court of Human Rights that allow every terrorist, mass criminal to stay in the country on family grounds.
Oh, my God. I mean, the latest sort of illegal migrant that we've got to deal with is a guy called Karandeep Singh, jailed this week for almost 5 years following a trial at Reading Crown Court. He claimed he was only 18 years of age when he came to this country, but instead he was an awful lot older, and he violently assaulted a worker during a robbery at a branch of Wicks in Berkshire, and now he's going to jail, and I presume when he comes out of jail he won't be deported either.
Oh, I doubt that very much, because if you look at the level of the criminality that I've just listed, a number of serious criminals who are all supposedly at that reach of Article 8, where a government, is allowed to actually deport criminals. The European Court of Human Rights does not say we can't. But when it comes to family life, you've got to ask, is it for the security of the nation and in the public interest? Well, surely having someone, as we've just seen, who controls 90% of the UK's heroin market is a threat to the country,
You would
a security. You would think. So a guy that simply attacked someone with whatever it was at B&Q, I don't think will even reach, the idea that the court will say or will even consider it as a. So there's no doubt whatsoever that we're so weak in terms of the way that we interpret the law in this country, and we're so weak in being able to challenge it, that this person, when he gets released, will be allowed to stay.
No, of course. I mean, looking back on the first 6 months or so of this government's activity, shall we say, on migrants, there's been an awful lot of meetings, announcements. In fact, Cooper's been talking about, doing deals with Germany to find outboard motors somewhere in the middle of the Rhine Valley. They've done deals with Iraq to sort of try and stop them from exporting anybody here. They've tried to do deals with other countries which will somehow stop people from crossing the channel.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, still got over 36,000 people that have arrived on the boats there in and if we've got to be worried there, Mike, and we're looking at this Europol and border control of Europe, who are suggesting there is another 250,000 people that have crossed the border this year into Europe on the western and eastern Mediterranean routes. And we know that when that happens at those levels, they're going to find themselves to 4 countries: Germany, Italy, France, and of course ourselves. So next year will be just as bad. When he talks about being able to stop the gangs are simply laughing at him, because at this Christmas, they'll be celebrating having at least another £500 million in their bank accounts, due to the fact that we haven't got a deterrence policy to stop them from leaving France in the first place. And of course, when they get here, if they're a criminal, particularly those of the Albanian sort that we've seen recently, who are convicted of big crimes, when they are deported, they're allowed to come back, as a carousel of crime is allowed to continue here in this country.
Right, because you do see an awful lot. You do see an awful lot of stories, don't you, of characters who get deported but just come back. It's almost as though, it's a boomerang effect. It's not like they have to worry about whether or not they're going to be able to get back in. They just get back on another boat and sail across the channel, and bonanza, here they are again.
Yeah, that's so much so they don't even need to pay themselves or their own gang to allow them to get onto a boat at Calais. They just simply fly in or get somewhere else in the back of a car. I mean, this is how nonsensical here. And what I find farcical, and I think the British people are entitled to this opinion, is that if we've got our security services alleging we've got masses of far-right rising in this country, and in their words, I mean, I'm sure the word isn't correct in any way, and then we're going to arrest people and put them in prison for years on the basis of a tweet, I think that's where they can't stop people coming across who are genuinely serious criminals and genuinely what security services are doing. I think they're choosing the easy option and the option for the optics of the politicians.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. So what do you see happening in the sort of opening months of next year? I mean, there's no real indications of how Europe is going to be. It looks like the European Union is kind of, hanging on for grim death to its kind of, rather together, anti-democratic organisation. We've got Germany looking at elections in February. They're probably going to have a Conservative leader rather than a Democrat. It looks as though Giorgia Meloni in Italy is making strides against the importation of so many people from the southern Mediterranean. But what do you see happening?
Well, I think the AfD are certainly going to grow ground in the German elections. But the way that they're working in Germany is to make sure that they will not succeed in the way that they want. Meloni is making some ground, but there is also a lot of European Union pressure on her not to do most of the things that she wants. I haven't seen really much coming out of the Dutch government. They're working behind the scenes to work with countries like Hungary to try and change the European Commission's rules on border control. And I do think that they'll start to come out stronger with deportation. But in this country, we won't follow that. What we'll start with is going to be the embarrassing period of 3 cases on the 20th of January that we know about. So certainly the Southport murder trial will begin. There'll be also the attack on the soldier that will happen, and obviously the councillor that threatened to slit the throats of individuals. All those 3 trials are going on, and they'll set the agenda for January. But going forward, I don't think anywhere up to March that we're going to see anything on immigration from the Labour government, because they're going to be so intoxicated with that. The impact of the economy, as you've been talking about early on in the show, is going to get more disastrous. We're probably in a recession in the next quarter. And so that's what's going to... And of course, what happens with Trump? That is going to be a major first 3 months that'll occupy that, when our brilliant, of course, the wonderful Lord Mandelson now as our ambassador, being able to talk to Trump and do a deal with ourselves. I just can't see that happening.
No. I mean, not to be trusted is Mandelson. I mean, at least he's got a bit of political talent, unlike most of the people in the government currently.
Of course,
you know, and he is the sort of ultimate chameleon, isn't he? He'll probably be just more than happy to involve himself going to lots of very expensive steakhouses in Washington DC. I'm sure I know the ones he's going to go to. Stephen, have a great Christmas. Good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity. Stephen's the director. Let's get a voice note from Belinda.
Morning, Mike. Belinda here. Can you please play the Christmas tree countdown? That was absolutely brilliant with the Thunderbird soundtrack in the background. Great show. Have a lovely Christmas. Bye.
Belinda, thank you very much. I don't know if you mean the Thunderbirds one or whether you mean the other one, but let's see what we've got.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1...
Thunderbirds are go.
Yes, we're prepared for a government, and I would not do anything differently to what I've done already. This is talk.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:37. I'm Mike Graham. This, of course, is the place to be. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation comes to talk. It's Morning Glory for glorious hours of Morning Glory between now and 10 o'clock. We kick off every single weekday morning at 6 a.m. I've just got some news for you. If you're travelling today, by the way, they're calling it Panic Friday, apparently, because they reckon that something like 26 million journeys are going to be made between now and Christmas. And today, apparently, is the first day of that particular scenario. And guess what? All of the roadworks that are all over there on the roads, apparently, according to National Highways Customer Service Director, they're going to be removed. They're going to remove 95% of the roads, the roadworks that they've got out there on the... Well, that tells you that they can do it any time they want. That tells you that half the roadworks are not actually being worked on at any given time. Absolutely incredible. Data from the RAC and travel analytics company INRIX estimates 29.3 million journeys will be made by motorists in the run-up to Christmas Day. About half of those are set to be made over the weekend, starting today. So it's all going to get a bit tricky. If you're driving tonight, you must expect probably to be held up. Of course, you could go by train, but there's going to be strikes on the 22nd and the 23rd, so good luck with that. And who knows if there's going to be any trains at all on Christmas Eve. But of course, there's no trains on Christmas Day and no trains on Boxing Day. This country, I tell you what, sometimes you just wonder if anybody wants to do any work at all. Dryden says this morning, Mike, can you play us listeners the best gaffs, please? Well, we are, and that's what we do. Here's one from Ian Collins and Jeremy Kyle.
Does Jason Manford really give a toss about that script, or is he saying that simply because he thinks that might, well, curry... Can you say that? I've no idea. Ghana...
You can't say curry favour. You can't say Ghana, because that's a country in Africa. So,
gain favour. No, because that could be gaining weight. That'll everybody...
yeah, gain is not good, and gain sounds a bit like the word gay, so
yes.
It's a bit homophobic.
Oh, God, and we're not homophobic, because that would be very unfair. But you can't say unfair, because what about the people who are fair? That would be wrong,
yeah, there's a lot of fair
And you can't
people.
say wrong, because there's a lot of people who are right. And you can't say right, because that could be far right, and you could be arrested.
Yeah, that could go...
And then if you go to arrested, you'll probably be attacked in... You can't say that, because prison's a nice place.
Well, you can't say place, because it's unfair to cod. I mean, you know, and haddock for that matter. You know, there's no diversity in saying place, is there? You've got to be more, you know, you've got to spread the joy in the fish department.
You have got to. I'm lost at that point, and I thought it was a very, very good... I mean, we made that up.
Lovely.
That was brilliant.
Yeah,
I mean, that
we did. It wasn't written by anybody, you know.
So
it was all right, it worked well.
Do you want me...
You just can't say anything these days, can you, without upsetting somebody? Sandy says this, and we were talking about this yesterday. Are there any shortages of anything? She says, morning, Mike, there was no Guinness at our local last night in Burford. Apparently there is some kind of Guinness shortage going on. I haven't come across it, but then that's because maybe I'm in London. But if you've witnessed anything like that, or you know anything about it, by all means get in touch, 0344 499 1000. Let's talk to Dr Dean Eggett, GP in Doncaster, CEO of Doncaster's local medical committee. Our favourite GP, of course, here at Morning Glory. Dr Dean, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too. What are you expecting over the Christmas period? We keep hearing that, funnily enough, I just got a message from Jeremy Kyle, who's at Kibosh. We were supposed to be going out tonight, but he's not very well. He's got a bad throat. Almost everybody I know in the last 2 weeks has had something like a cold or, you know, a bad throat or, you know, a runny nose. Nothing terrible, but just something kind of annoying.
Yeah, all of the infections have hit at once this year, Mike, sadly. So we know the NHS is on its knees. It has been for the last decade. But at the moment, we're hit by this so-called quaddemic. So it's the four big hitters that come every year. But this time, rather than spread out over the winter period, they've all come at once. So there's influenza, there's COVID, there's a virus called respiratory syncytial virus, and last of all, there's norovirus. So hospitals and people and the nation is on its knees, as you've noticed with the problems with trains and roads and everywhere.
Yeah, it really isn't good. And hospitals, of course, many of them at the moment are saying they haven't got any bed space at all. Because, again, this is what happens at this time of year. Why is it that they can't, over the course of the previous sort of 11 months, because they know this is coming, make more space or do something to kind of ameliorate the problem?
Well, to a certain extent, they have. So 1 in 20 hospital beds at the moment is affected by one of these four different viruses. So the majority of our hospital beds are taken out of action. So the only thing that you can do is try to increase hospital capacity over the winter season, but that costs an absolute fortune. And the reality is that our hospital infrastructure in the UK is in such a poor state, there literally isn't the room for the beds. And then where on earth are the staff to look after the beds? So if you needed to increase hospital capacity by by 5%, 10% over the winter period, it's practically impossible with the infrastructure that we've got.
But why can't they just take that by the sort of the scruff of the neck at some point or other in the year and go, look, we know this is coming. I mean, I read it every single year in The Guardian, you know, once again, a winter crisis looming, you know, the quadremic or whatever it's called. You know, every single year it's the same. You know, it hits around about sort of October the 31st as you're getting out of Halloween into November. And it seems as though they haven't done any preparation in the previous 6 months.
There has been some preparation, to be fair. So the main theme at the moment is this concept of a hospital at home. So patients are looked after in the community by workers rather than actually going into the hospital infrastructure. Because, like I said, you know, the main solution here is going to be to expand hospital space, expand beds and expand staff. And quite frankly, that costs money, and there is none. So if there's no money, how can you afford a massive expansion in hospital infrastructure over the winter period?
When you say there's no money, there is 200 billion swirling around in the system somewhere.
Yeah, well, so there's not enough money spent in the right places, and I've spoken quite a lot about this. There's plenty of cash in the NHS, but it's not necessarily in the right place at the right time.
No, listen, this is one of my big bugbears. I say this to people all the time. It's not as if you haven't got enough money. You just haven't got anybody spending it in the right way. You know, it needs to go to the front line. It needs to go to clinicians. It needs to go to people like you. It needs to go to, you know, hospitals. It doesn't need to go to, say, £300 million worth of data protection to some American data farming company, you know, and all these ridiculous contracts that they seem to have all over the place, spending billions and billions of pounds out of the 200 billion, nothing to do with actual medical help for people.
You've said it for me. I'm inclined to agree. But one of the positive things we have heard over the past few days is the government have invested in hospices, and nobody can argue against that. Hospices are a brilliant investment and they do need help. But there has to be something said about, you know, we're not investing in prevention of health. We're not really investing in hospitals. What we're really investing is the end of life. Now, the end of life does need investment, but if that's the strategy of our government, really just to invest in end of life and not really care about the rest, that worries me somewhat.
Yeah, right. And looking back on the first 6 months of this government, and they'll always say, well, we haven't had enough time to do anything. Has anything improved in the NHS since they've been in?
No. You know what? I was thinking about that this morning on the way here, thinking about this interview, thinking what tangible difference has this government made to the NHS at the moment? And actually, the only tangible difference is things are worse. And things are worse simply because of national insurance and increase in minimum wage. Right. So all industry is going to be affected by this, including healthcare and social care. We are going to have to lay off staff because we can't afford to continue to run services. So expect in the next year, unless there is a solution, healthcare is going to get worse.
That is incredible, isn't it? Are they not supposed to be compensating public sector organisations like the NHS for paying the national insurance hike? Because I thought I read that somewhere. But if you're, as a doctor, saying to me that you're not going to get that, then that's a ridiculous state of affairs, isn't it?
What we've heard directly from the government is that GPs are not part of the NHS family and therefore will not receive any compensation for this. We've been told to hold tight because there might be some help coming by April. Now, quite frankly, we can't wait until April because that's when the costs hit. So action is being taken now across the NHS to save costs.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? And what are you doing over Christmas, Dr. Dean? Is your surgery open, closed? What goes on?
So my surgery is open apart from Christmas Day and the usual bank holidays. So we'll be looking after patients. As you can see, I'm here ready to go, looking after patients today. But just bear in mind that the NHS, people in the NHS, such as myself, we get sick too. So it's a difficult period for all of us. And it got me thinking when you were talking about the roads and people driving and hospitals being jam-packed, just take it really steady on the roads over the winter period, because the last thing you want is a road traffic accident and ending up in hospital, because you'll probably sat in an ambulance rather than in the hospital itself.
Yeah, absolutely right. Good to talk to you. Have a great Christmas, Dr. Dean. We'll see you next year. Wouldn't it be nice if he could have said, yeah, the Labour government have been in for 6 months and they've really, really made a difference. And when I said, what's improved since they've been in, he said nothing. Nothing at all. Not a sausage, bugger all. Nothing. Nothing. Listen to that. Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer. Let's get another gaff. Here's Julia coming into the studio, slightly in an ungainly Well, he was just
fashion.
giving you an answer, but he was probably a little bit upset as well. But there we are. Julia's just come in, and Dr. Camera. Hello. Listen, there's many ways to make an entrance. There's no reason why you shouldn't make one like that. Very dramatic. Well done. Yeah, there we are. Let's get a voice note from Paul.
Morning, Mike. Paul from Sidcup here. Over the weekend, we had my daughter's gender reveal, and we decided to do it in a special way.
To go on.
Should we do a Keir Starmer countdown?
Yeah. 5, 4,
Yay! It's a lot more exciting than the Christmas tree illuminations, isn't it? I mean, at least there are actually people enjoying it. You know, Dowdy said, everybody went, I'd like to join me in counting down, and nobody did. They literally just stood there looking at him like he was a lemon. Unbelievable. Coming up, I've got the great pleasure to say to you that LaDonna Harvey is here. She's visiting from San Diego, California, and she's going to be right here in the studio talking about Joe Biden. Apparently, he's been gaga for years, according to the Wall Street Journal. This is Talk.
Is he best placed to be US ambassador to the US?
Do you know what I'm going to say, actually? I think Lord Mandelson is better placed than many others that they could have elected.
Nigel
not
Farage?
elected. Well, Farage is a difficult one, seeing as he is the leader of an opposition party,
true.
one that is probably going to
right.
do quite well in the next couple of years. Mandelson, I know we all dislike him for various different reasons, but he's not an idiot. I'll say that much, and he's quite a pragmatist compared to certainly the latest iteration of the Labour Party.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:51. I'm Mike Graham. It is here, of course, that you hear the most common sense of all time, because this is Morning Glory here with you for 4 glorious hours every single morning from 6 until 10. And I'm delighted to say what a glorious day it has become, because LaDonna Harvey has just walked in live and in person from San Diego, California. Welcome.
Indeed. Actually, it's from Phoenix now.
You're in Phoenix all the time now?
I'm in Phoenix all the time now.
Okay, cool. And Phoenix is a pretty cool place. I'm a big fan of Arizona,
It's
actually.
a great city.
Yeah.
I like it.
And, I mean, we talk about clear air zones in London, which, of course, we don't have, but the air in Arizona is amazing, isn't it?
It is fabulous.
It's that kind of, you know, dry, crisp, gets a little cold in the winter, but not too cold.
Not too cold.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
Wow.
I run from air conditioning to air conditioning. I've lost like 15 pounds.
Brilliant. Absolutely fantastic.
You know, when you're running from 122 degrees, you can move.
You can.
Even at my age.
Absolutely right. And there's lots of reasons you can run at your age. I mean, it depends on who's chasing you.
True.
As my father once said to me, never marry a woman who can run faster than you. Which it's one of those phrases that you probably can't say anymore, but there we are.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Joe Biden, though, because you've come in at a very auspicious time, because it turns out the Wall Street Journal, which is a sister newspaper of ours here in the building, it's in part of News UK, have done this investigation in which they've worked out that basically Joe Biden was gaga all along, even from the moment he took office 4 years ago.
So, I mean, but is anybody shocked by this?
Not really.
You know, they worked really hard to cover it up.
Yeah.
Democrats in particular, and certainly his staff.
Yeah.
But everybody, I mean, you knew by the way that he was walking.
Yeah. I mean, you and I spoke about it once a week at least, right?
Sure. It was painfully obvious that this was not somebody who was okay.
No.
And the fact that they trotted him out there as long as they did and lied about it, I think, is what lost them in the election and won Trump the election.
But should there not be some kind of, you know, sort of sanction for that? Because how on earth can people who run government in what is supposed to be the most powerful country in the Western world, how can they get away with just telling barefaced lies about somebody? Because the White House press secretary used to say he's had, you know, neurologists have been in, he's had tests, there's nothing wrong with him.
Right.
I mean, it's barefaced lies.
Sure. But, you know, they lie about politicians all the time.
Yeah, but isn't that terrible?
It's, you know, it is awful, and it's interesting. I had a friend point out who is from another country as well, and he said, you know, the press secretary, aren't they supposed to tell you the truth?
Right.
No.
Right.
No, the press secretary is there to advance and gatekeep on the White House. That is their job, and that's what they do very well.
Yeah,
it's a skill.
Maybe we should trot through a few of the old Biden clips and see whether you can tell if he's actually gaga or not. Here he is talking about whether or not he's a black woman.
By the way, I'm proud to be, as I said, the first vice president, first black woman to serve with a black president. I'm proud to the the first black woman.
I mean, I
I'm
know
sorry,
what he was getting at. I think he was trying to say, I served with the first black president, Barack Obama.
Right.
But he got the words mixed up.
Right, and the first black vice president in Kamala Harris.
Right.
But, I mean, he's been doing that since the start of his administration. This is not, you know, it's his work.
And they used to say, didn't they, that he had a stutter, which meant that he didn't speak like normal people speak.
Right, which he does.
Right.
You know, that's the thing. He does. That's not a lie.
Right.
That's not why he's not speaking well, but it's not a lie.
Okay.
So, you know, if you couch it in just enough truth, you can get away with it.
Okay, well, let's have a look at another one. Here he is making another speech. Let's see what we make of this one.
She knows so long as she was denied, our freedom can never be secured.
Sorry, can we have that one again?
She knows so long as she was denied, our freedom can never be secured.
Denied. I think I caught denied. Denied, I think.
But we're all saying it, right? And so...
Sure.
Well, but in the end, surely, if he's in charge of the nuclear button and all the rest of it, and he's in meetings and he's supposed to be making decisions, I mean, people have said to me, look, he's not really in charge, other people are running the government. Well, who are they?
It's John Podesta. Comes to mind. You know, there are a lot of people behind the scenes who make it work. And I think that this is kind of an illustration as to what a figurehead you kind of see in the president and how weak they truly are. I mean, they're not that powerful. But do you think,
therefore, that they just go round him and just go, right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to send some, you know, missiles to Ukraine. We're going to have peace talks in the Middle East. We're going to send, you know, Blinken over to Qatar to talk to the Taliban.
Right.
And they just don't bother mentioning it to him?
Why bother?
I mean, it's quite worrying, that, isn't it?
It is a little bit. You know, with him, the cognitive decline has been marked, and it's been
very visible.
And very visible. And the fact that they were able to keep questioning people away from it or divert them. Is a little bit. I mean, you know, it kind of lets you know that the people behind the green curtain are a little bit scary.
I mean, we had a bit of it as well, because Keir Starmer went to see him in Washington shortly before he became Prime Minister, and he came back full of the joys of spring, and people said, how's Joe Biden? Oh, he's absolutely fine. You know, he's definitely going to run for president. There's absolutely nothing wrong. He's never been better. And here's a picture of us in the Oval Office. Let's hear from Biden on Putin. Vladimir, that is. Have we got it?
Russia will not prevail in this war. Ukraine will prevail in this war, and we'll stand with them every single step of the way. That's what the compact says, loudly and clearly. And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. He's going to beat President Putin. President Zelensky. I'm so focused on beating Putin, we got to worry about it. Anyway.
Yeah, anyway. Anyway doesn't really cover that. Sorry, anyway?
It's fine.
Anyway.
Everything is fine.
Yeah. I was thinking about Putin, that's why I said his name.
Right.
But it doesn't mean I'm Gaga at all. That wouldn't be fair.
No, everything is fine, Mike. I don't know what you're talking about.
If I started calling you Queen Elizabeth II, you know, you'd probably think Graham's finally lost the plot. What's he doing?
If you could head over to the tower and get me a few of those jewels, I'd love that.
Yeah, that would be all right. Yeah,
that'd be all right.
Yeah, apparently you probably could, because the police are too busy arresting people for Twitter statements that they've made.
Twitter violations.
Yeah, you're all right going and stealing some crown jewels.
Right.
But anyway, listen. So Biden is in now for what, another 3 weeks or so?
Yeah.
Not quite. Till January the 6th.
Right.
And then, I mean, Donald Trump has already done some pretty amazing things. He's already threatened Hamas, and if you don't get rid of those hostages by the time I come in, there's going to be hell to pay. He's already said he's going to pull the Ukrainian missiles back and say you can't fire them from our point of view as well.
Right.
He's already kind of influencing the rest of the world.
Sure he is. I mean, his influence probably no greater than in the budgeting process for the United States, where we're, you know, they're trying to put forth a stopgap spending bill because Congress can't get its job done.
Right.
And he said no, and it failed.
Right. It's going to be interesting, isn't it? Next 4 years.
He is at the very least wildly entertaining.
Yeah, he is.
And he gives you something to talk about.
It's going to be great for us. Also for me, and a lot of people say this in England now, that if Kamala Harris had got in, the whole DEI thing would have been really, really bad, and it would have stretched all the way over here. Now, at least we can have somebody sensible in the White House who's not going to kowtow to all of that madness.
No, he doesn't do that, and he doesn't do climate change.
No.
So, you know,
Thank God for that.
those are the things that he's not going to do.
Right.
That is not happening.
Well, Donna, great to see you.
It's so good to see you.
Very Merry Christmas. And maybe at the other end of next week we can catch up for a drink or something, if possible, if you're still here.
Yeah.
Donna Harvey, ladies and gentlemen, from Arizona, Phoenix indeed, rising from the ashes. I'll be back after this and the news. Bye.
I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
I have just returned from Buckingham Palace to form the next government of this great nation.
Take a look at what happened.
I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack.
The time has come, and this surely is England's time. Williams, who scores, and Spain lead. Shot from distance is in. It is Cole Palmer. Low ball in, or far ball, slides it in.
An absolute killer of a goal.
I agree with the protest, but I don't think the violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was the answer at all.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Liberal left couldn't understand that this man could be anything other than the great newsreader, a man of integrity.
Is it possible in any way, shape or form that Keir Starmer didn't know about these facts about the suspect in Southport.
I find it extraordinary that he wouldn't know. It seems that the public has not been told the truth.
No, there's nothing like an American election, I have to say. North Dakota has gone red, South Dakota's red, Texas is red.
Many people have told me that God
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. 2 minutes past 8. I'm Mike Graham, and this, of course, is where you need to be if you want to hear what's going on out there in the big wide world. We're here for 4 glorious hours every single weekday morning from 6 until 10. Today is Friday, the last Friday before Christmas. Simon Calder is going to be talking to us. He's in Vienna, would you believe? And he's going to be telling us exactly just how bad the traffic is going to be. You just heard on the news there, over 20 million journeys apparently are going to be made today alone, as loads of people make the getaway to get somewhere for Christmas, whether it's up north, down south, southwest, southeast, you know, who knows, Wales even. It'll take you a long time there because, of course, maximum speed 20 miles an hour, so you'll be driving for a while if you want to get anywhere there. We'll be talking later on as well to Kevin Schofield, political editor at HuffPost. We'll get from him why it is that Rachel Reeves has made such a dog's breakfast of the economy. According to the front page of the Times today, the budget has left us with zero growth. That's not me saying it, that's the Bank of England saying it, and they're basically saying that there's not much light at the end of the tunnel either, and we could be in for a recession in the coming year. Now, if Rachel Reeves was the first female Chancellor, and such a big thing was made of that by Keir Starmer, he went, she's going to be making history. You know, women and girls around the world will be watching and seeing and learning and wanting to be her. I don't think so. Absolutely disgraceful. We've got gaffes galore as well because, of course, it's Friday. We've got loads and loads of voice notes coming in too, so do join in the fun and do send us a message. 0344 499 1000. This week has been absolutely punctuated by brilliance, by you, and many, many songs, many poems, all sorts of really funny remarks about Keir Starmer and how useless he is. Let's have a listen to some of those messages.
Morning, Mike. This is Maddie from Essex.
Morning, guys. Fantastic show as always.
Hi, Mike. It's Johnny, the White Van Man here.
Morning, Mike. Merry Christmas to you. You've done a wonderful job all year.
Morning, Mike. It's Bob from Manchester. Thank God for Morning Glory.
Thank you very much indeed. Coming up in this hour, also, I'd like to talk about something which very few people ever talk about, and that's evolution, right? Now, I know that you'll go, what's he talking about now? Why is he talking about evolution? Here's why. Because we're always being told, oh, you know, climate change is a nightmare, the world's ending, everything's dying off, you know, do you know how many species are dying off all the time? And then we go down and where are the bees, nobody sees them, any wasps have all disappeared, right? According to the Times today, they found a vegetarian piranha in the Amazon, right? And apparently this is a new species of piranha, which has come out of nowhere. They've also discovered a Madagascar moth that drinks the tears of sleeping birds. There's no other show that talks about this kind of stuff. This is important, because what it means is that the Earth's not dying at all. It's just regenerating. That's what happens, right? So forget about Dale Vince, who was in court this week saying that his wife made him take a private jet. For heaven's sake. 0344 499 1000. Peter Mandelson's going to be the new US ambassador for the United Kingdom. And also, of course, we've got Merry Christmas from Wills, Kate and the kids on the front page of The Sun. We haven't shown you that picture yet, but we will show it to you and we will tell you what's going on. This is Morning Glory. Here's one from Lisa, who talks about Rachel Reeves. She's been accused of crashing the economy. Who cares if she is a woman, says Lisa. I couldn't care. Two Fs, sorry. I'm so angry with that statement. Also, businesses are closing down and stating that national insurance is the reason. The man is delusional. She's talking about Keir Starmer. Let's have a listen to what Keir Starmer said when she was about to be appointed as the first Chancellor. And watch his face, his little smug grin.
It will also be the first budget delivered by a woman ever. That is a moment of pride. When Rachel Reeves stands up, she will be making history. And I can tell you, young women and girls across the country will be watching, they will look up, and they will...
And they will what? He was cut off prematurely. Absolutely ridiculous, right? Who cares whether she's a woman? It's almost as though Keir Starmer thinks that women are substandard to men. And it's such a surprise that they can do things that men can do. Look at his little face. Should we try that one again? Only this time actually get to the end of it.
It will also be the first budget delivered by a woman ever. That is a moment of pride. When Rachel Reeves stands up, she will be making history. And I can tell you, young women and girls across the country will be watching, they will look up, and they will notice.
Yeah, and they'll go, what an absolute pile of crap. That's what they'll do. Let's talk to Kevin Schofield. Very good morning to you, Kevin.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, as they say on social media, I don't think that was the flex he wanted it to be, because it turns out the Bank of England have declared that this budget has basically killed off growth in Britain.
Yeah, and this is obviously much more significant than the Conservatives or Reform criticising the budget. This is the Independent Bank of England. You know, these guys are the experts, and if they say that the budget has killed off growth, or at the moment it looks like it's killed off growth, then you have to sit up and take notice. And it just put a bit of the tin lid, really, on what's been a pretty grim week for Rachel Reeves. We've already had confirmation that the economy shrunk in October as well as September, and that inflation ticked up by more than was expected. So yeah, it's been a pretty bad week, and they're going to have to hope and keep their fingers crossed over Christmas that they get some economic growth pretty soon.
And let's not forget that, you know, this is entirely contrary to what they said would happen. You know, they said when they came into power in July that Britain was going to become the fastest growing economy in the G7, and they wanted it to be going like gangbusters, according to the Office for National Statistics. And now it's completely done the reverse of that, and they're in kind of stagflation territory and stagnation. So, and nobody that I speak to on an economic level thinks it's going to get any better for at least a year.
No, and there's been numerous surveys by business organisations about the budget, and they all say the same thing, that the rise in employers' national insurance has damaged confidence. It's made it much less likely that they'll employ people or give decent wage rises to their employees, which obviously has a knock-on effect for the economy and economic growth. Now, Keir Starmer was asked again yesterday in front of the liaison committee of senior MPs whether it was still the government's position that by the end of the Parliament, the UK will have the fastest growing economy in the G7 of advanced nations. Well, he said that that is still the plan, but it's not. They've not got off to a great start, and if they are going to meet that target, as I say, they're going to have get growth next year as soon as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think they're taken by surprise by all of this? Because, you know, Keir Starmer doesn't like to admit that he's made any mistakes, and he was talking to Harry Cole earlier this week from The Sun, and he kind of avoided the question when he was asked, do you think you've made mistakes? Let's have a look at what he said to the liaison committee yesterday.
Is there anything that you would do differently if you were starting out now, knowing what you know?
No, we had to do tough stuff. We're getting on with it, and I'm very pleased to be delivering from a position of power rather than going around the division lobbies losing every night. I've had too much of that.
Well, thank you very much.
It's almost as though he's kind of living in a parallel universe. I mean, I get the fact that he doesn't want to admit that he's made mistakes, and I get the fact that for some people that's difficult. But, you know, he's not delivering anything, really. When he talks about delivering, what does he mean?
Yeah, I mean, you speak privately to senior figures in the government, and they will admit, for instance, that the winter fuel payment announcement certainly could have been handled more differently, and it probably was a bad choice in the first place. I mean, that was within days of entering government. He set down a marker that they were taking winter fuel payments of millions of pensioners, and they've never really recovered from that. They've been on the back foot ever since. So there's been numerous missteps, I think, since they came to power. I mean, I do accept up to a certain level that things were worse than they thought, but we knew things were bad. It's not as if it came as a massive shock that there wasn't a lot of money around when they took over. So I think it's safe to say that if you only have to look at the opinion polls, that confirms it, that people are less than impressed by the start they've made. That's nearly 6 months now. I think the time for blaming the last government has come and gone, and now people are looking to Labour to actually come up with some solutions to the country's many problems.
Yeah, and also this kind of theory, Dan Hodges purports to deliver it, of kind of, front-loading expectations, as they call it, which means that, we basically announce a load of terrible things that people don't want in the early part of the government, and then by the time we get to the next election time, people will have forgotten. Even Dan Hodges this week said to me, you know what, people aren't going to forget this, and he, in particular, was very critical of the WASPy Women decision that was made this week, and that seemed as well to sort of come out of the blue, almost as though they want to kind of self-harm. Like, they didn't need to do that. They didn't need to break their promises. Some people even think that the decision's the right one, but because of the way that they had said that they weren't going to do it, it's kind of blown up in their faces again.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't help that they've explained it in a rather technocratic way. About 90% of pensioners affected knew about it. I don't think that butters any parsnips if you're one of the pensioners that's losing out as a result. I think maybe if they'd been a bit more upfront and said, look, yeah, we did promise it in the past, but we've come in, we've looked at the books, and unfortunately, as much as we'd like to help, we can't, and we're very sorry about that. Right. But it wasn't dressed up in that type of language. Yeah. And it just, there's a lesson there. You can jump on as many bandwagons as you want in opposition, but if you get elected, then people will look to hold you to the promises that you made, and if you don't keep them, then you're in a whole lot of trouble. Yeah,
absolutely right. And so the next, we've had the first 6 months, so the next 12 months, I suppose, is going to be the focus of what people write about over the course of the next few days. There'll be week in reviews coming up. There'll be, the year in review coming up. There's nothing good on the horizon for Keir Starmer, is there?
Well, not really. The first thing he's got to contend with is Donald Trump entering the White House in a few weeks' time. We know this morning that they're going to make Peter Mandelson the ambassador to Washington. His job will be to try and establish good relations with the Trump administration and try to persuade them not to put tariffs on UK imports. Right. That could obviously have a massive economic impact. Then we've got local elections coming up in May.
What have we? Are they not trying to cancel those?
Well, some of them may well be cancelled, but some will go ahead, and it'll be all eyes on Reform to see how they do, because if they make serious progress at the expense of both Labour and the Conservatives, then that creates a narrative, that Nigel Farage is on the march. So that will be bad news for Keir Starmer as well. It
will be bad news for the Tories too, won't it? Because, we've got a kind of situation whereby, I was talking to some people last night, I was at, where the Tories were kind of a little bit lost. They're not quite sure where they're going. They're not quite sure where Kemi Badenoch is. Again, she was a little bit, shall we say, underperforming, if you like, at Prime Minister's questions. She's been over to America to meet up with J.D. Vance and talk about, forging alliances with the Republicans. But, there's a sense that Reform are more or less now the kind of the opposition, which sounds ridiculous, there's only 5 of them, but they're making a lot more noise than anybody in the Tory party's doing.
They are, yeah. It's not difficult, I'm sure you've done it yourself, to find Conservatives who are a little bit underwhelmed, shall we say, by how Kemi Badenoch has done thus far. She hasn't really seemed to get into her stride. Now, it is still early days. She's only been Conservative leader for 6 weeks, so you've got to give her a bit of time. Right. But the early signs aren't encouraging if you're a Conservative MP or a Conservative Party supporter. And she's clearly got an eye on Reform as much as she's got an eye on what the government are up to, because at those local elections, they're starting from a reasonably high watermark. The last time these seats were contested were at the height of Boris Johnson's vaccine bounce in 2001. So the Conservatives actually did pretty well. So they've got quite a lot riding on it, and there's a good chance that they'll go backwards considerably, whereas Reform could well make serious progress, and that could pile more pressure on Kemi Badenoch as well.
Right. And Peter Mandelson, I suppose, one of the few Labour apparatchiks who hasn't insulted Donald Trump, so it's probably quite a good move to put him in there, I suppose. And he's quite a clever operator, whether you like him or not. He was a very sort of key part of the Blair administration, a key player in the Blair administration. What do you think he'll bring to the party?
Well, I think what they're relying on is his experience when he was a European Trade Commissioner in Brussels, between leaving the House of Commons and being named a life peer to become a cabinet member under Gordon Brown. He had 4 years in Brussels, all over the trade policy, so he knows it inside out, and I think that is going to be key, really, because, as I said earlier, Labour are desperate to try and avoid any economic damage from Donald Trump's policies. primarily putting tariffs on imports. So he will be expected, Peter Mandelson, to get in there, get inside, get well on side with the Trump administration and persuade them to look kindly on the UK when it comes to those tariff decisions. But yeah, a lot riding on it, and yeah, I think probably on balance it's probably quite a good appointment.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been worse, I suppose. Let's put it that way. Kevin, good to talk to you. Have a good Christmas. Thanks very much indeed. Kevin Schofield, political editor of the HuffPost UK. Let's get some voice notes on the go. One from Stephen first up.
Morning, Mike. Just wanted to wish you a Merry Christmas, mate, to you and your family and all your co-producers and everybody at Talk. Let's enjoy it. There's no to look forward to in this country anyway, so may as well make the best of it. Have a good time off, mate, and look forward to getting you back. Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Very kind. This from Mick, who says the Biden cover-up is bigger than Watergate because unconstitutional decisions were being made by unelected people and the public were lied to. Is this now the political norm? Well, see, I think it's a massive story, this. I think the idea that we were lied to by people in the White House, people in the Biden administration who consistently told us that there was nothing wrong with him, who consistently told us that he was absolutely in total control of his faculties and there was no question about him not standing for president again because, of course, he could do another 4 years. It now turns out they were lying to us from the very beginning of his presidency, from 4 years ago. So when he won, which makes it even more obvious that when Donald Trump was questioning how it was that he increased his number of people voting for him, he got 80 million votes, Donald Trump, in 2020, and yet he still lost. He got more votes in 2020 than he got in 2016, right? And yet, somehow, he didn't win because Biden got more votes than he did. And I still think there's questions about that. Let's get another voice note from Nathan.
Say some dirty words, almost gender someone. Post it online and the Stasi will come. Stasi's coming for you.
Brilliant. So many different songs are being utilised as well. Ben says this. Morning, Mike. The reason Starmer the Harmer has found $1.6 billion for potholes is just a softener for the next budget when they will put up fuel duty and road tax. You heard it here first, mate. Great show. Well, I mean, apparently, according to Starmer, one of the reasons they didn't put up road tax was because they want to be fair to road users and they want to be fair to motorists. And motorists apparently deserve to be able to drive on roads which are not riddled with potholes. We should try driving around my way. You know, because it's riddled with potholes there, for heaven's sake. This is Friday, of course, so it's time for gaffes. And we've got gaffes galore because it is the final Friday before Christmas. Let's get one from John Redwood.
I'm going to give you two stories to remain, both by who I think's up for worst cabinet minister as yet. Do you want A or B? A or B? Take a pick.
All right.
It's one of the greatest gaps ever, though. He's just staring at the screen. Doesn't know what to say. It's like, what are you doing? What are you talking about? Goodness me. Right, anyway, where are we? 8:20. We've got lots more. There's Simon Calder coming up next. He's in Vienna. Vienna. And we're going to find out why the roads are going to be absolutely clogged to the gunnels today because it's the last Friday before Christmas. If you're getting out there, you better get out early, is what I would say. This is Talk.
is he best placed to be US ambassador to the US?
You know what I'm going to say, actually? I think Lord Mandelson is better placed than many others that they could have elected.
Nigel
not
Farage?
elected. Well, Farage is a difficult one, seeing as he is the leader of an opposition party,
true.
one that is probably going to do quite well in the next couple of years. Mandelson, I know we all dislike him for various different reasons, but he's not an idiot. I'll say that much, and he's quite a pragmatist compared to certainly the latest iteration of the Labour Party.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, and welcome, of course, to the home of common sense. It's 8:23. Mike, I bet the BBC would play the song if it was about the Tories. Great show. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year to yourself and Benedict. Benedict Spence was in earlier. And all at talkTV. That's from Mick. Thank you very much indeed. Let's get a voice note from Dean.
Morning, Mike. Great show as always. I've got a theory on the NHS and the so-called crisis every single year. I don't think it's a crisis every year. I think they're just busy. They're so used to doing not a lot during the rest of the year that when they start actually getting some customers come through the door, they just crumble.
Yeah.
And it also doesn't help that they're all off for Christmas.
Yeah, loads of them are off sick all the time. And exactly right. I mean, I said this to Dr. Dean Eggett. You know, how is it possible that every single year the same thing happens, and every single year nothing is done to prepare for the same thing happening, nothing is done to change what happened last year, so that this year you might be actually slightly better off because you've done something to take account of what happened last year, so it doesn't happen again, because you know it's going to happen. I don't understand why there are people running organisations that don't get that. Let's have another gaff. This one on Alex Phillips' show.
You could have a bigger event with bigger stages, invite international megastars, even more pop-ups selling even more delicious food, cocktail bars. I mean, you name it. If you actually moved it to somewhere like Hyde Park Lodge, you could actually really put the Notting Hill Carnival on boosters. Roger, you with us? Roger?
Yes.
I was just talking to you.
Yes.
You're catching my tiredness from last night.
No.
I thought we'd lost you there for a minute. I thought I was going to have to dive over the desk and start performing CPR. Glad to see you're still with us.
No, I was just writing something about what Peter was just saying.
Yeah. Alex actually thought Roger had died. It's quite a good gaff, that, isn't it? Luckily he hadn't. Roger Gewolb, that is, of course. Let's talk to Simon Calder, very much part of the furniture here at Talk. He's been with us all year, again, being absolutely diligent and providing a wonderful service to all of you lovely people who want to know where to go, what to do, and when to do it. Simon, I believe you're in Vienna.
I am. Yes, it's, thank you, Grüß Gott, as I think they say here. Very nice to be here. It's all looking very festive, and things are relatively calm, which is more than you can say for the UK, but I'm all connected here and finding out what's happening in the UK, and, well, it's looking like a bleak mid-winter. Motoring organisations, both the RAC and the AA, predicting today is going to be the busiest day on the roads of the whole festive season. That's because you've got, for example, all the normal people who are listening to you right now on their normal commutes and will be there again this evening, plus the start of the Great Getaway. So the AA is saying a record 23.7 million journeys made today, and they have put out an amber traffic warning. There we are.
Yes, I mean, another traffic warning for different parts of the country, but basically, I mean, I think most people who travel on a regular basis now know that if you're going to take a journey that's in any way more than about an hour away, you're going to be stuck in traffic at some point on a motorway, aren't you?
You are. There's obviously some of our usual favourites are going to be particularly tricky. So today it's the M25, the western half of it, from the M1 all the way down to the M23 for Gatwick, but that in particular...
That's half of it.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But then also between, specifically between the M3 and the M4, which includes Heathrow Airport. And by the way, today is going to be the busiest day of the winter at Heathrow, as well as at Glasgow, at Luton and at Newcastle airports. There's going to be problems on the M4 heading west from London towards Bristol. Then the A34 making an appearance between Newbury and Oxford. M27 doesn't often get much of a shout, but Southampton to Portsmouth is going to be a lot busier later. M6 in the West Midlands, what a surprise, all the way from Junction 4 to Junction 11.
Take the toll road.
Yeah, exactly. And then the A38. Yes, that old road winds down through Bristol. I think that's mostly to do with Bristol Airport, which is going to be very busy. And anybody who knows the road access to that knows that it's a mess.
Yes. One of the things that I found rather encouraging, though, was that the sort of the people in charge of the highways in Britain have said they're going to lift about 95% of the roadworks off the road and allow people to actually use the road as it was intended, rather than have it being sort of stripped down to one lane or 2 lanes instead of 3.
Yes, and that's a reflection of the fact that the highways people know that everyone is on the move, and so therefore, of course, they want to make things as easy as possible. Can I talk about railways?
Please.
Because it's exactly the opposite there. My goodness me. I don't wish to be London-centric, because I know that most of the talk audience isn't in London, but you might well have to go there. So they're closing down basically 3 of the biggest stations in Britain.
Are they?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Tomorrow, London St Pancras International. That's the hub for the Midland Main Line, which runs from Sheffield, Derby, Nottingham and Leicester down to London. That's going to be severed till the 29th of December, inclusive. Yes.
Does that include the Eurostar as well?
No, it doesn't. It's only that line. So you'll be able to get Eurostar to Paris and Brussels. In addition to that, the southeastern trains will run, but nothing. I mean, for instance, it took me 1 hour and 40 minutes to fly from Gatwick to Vienna. It's going to take an awful lot longer than that to get the train from Leicester to London from tomorrow onwards. Then it gets to Christmas Eve. Everything winds down early. And guess what? No trains on Christmas Day. That's usual. Almost no trains on Boxing Day. We've got some in the Merseyside area. Gatwick Airport has a link from London. Stansted Airport has a link from London. But then on the 27th of December, when you think everything's opening up, well, it won't. In particular, London Paddington Station, second busiest in the world, in the UK at least. That's going to stay closed till the 29th. And Liverpool Street, the busiest of all in the City of London. That's where you get trains to Essex, to East Anglia, to Stansted Airport. That's going to be closed all the way through from Christmas Day to New Year's Day inclusive. And of course, various other bits of engineering works, some on the East Coast, on the West Coast main line, and that then merges seamlessly with the first of 5 months of strikes.
Yes,
the West Coast.
Our friends on Avanti, right?
Yeah, West Coast Main Line. The RMT union is unhappy with how much train managers get for working on their days off, and so they will be striking on New Year's Eve, on the 2nd of January, and then every Sunday from the 12th of January through to the 25th.
Aren't they striking?
May.
Aren't they striking on the 22nd and 23rd of this month as well?
They were going to. Very good recall. They actually postponed that.
Oh, did they?
That because they got a better offer. So the train company, it'd be an interesting talking point for your lovely audience. The train company said, OK, you can have roughly 250 for working on a day off, or 300 if it's a weekend. And they put that to the members, who threw it out and just said that's not enough. So I don't know if 250 for a day off or £300 in at a weekend is a lot. It sounds to me a lot, but maybe in railway land it isn't. Bear in mind, of course, that the drivers at the sharp end of the train, they all get £600 for working on a day off. So that's a bit to be in.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? Absolutely unbelievable. They've only just been given a decent pay rise. Why don't they just bloody well get on with it?
Well, You can ask Mick Lynch of the RMT.
I will.
Train drivers are not on strike, though, anywhere that I can see. And the Elizabeth line in London, we've got a bit of action.
So would you say, because I know we used to have this in the past, like last year or so, if your RMT are on strike, there can sometimes still be trains. It's just when ASLEP go on strike, there aren't any. So it'll be disruption rather than no trains, right?
Oh, sure, yeah. So what you will get on all of those strike dates is you will get a skeleton service from one train an hour, London to Birmingham, to Manchester, to Liverpool, up to Preston as well, maybe every couple of hours to Carlisle and Glasgow. No trains to Edinburgh, no trains along the North
and
Wales
coastline. The skeleton service will also mirror the fact that you'll look like a skeleton when you get off at the other end, because there won't be any buffet car, probably, because they won't open it.
Well, I think that will be open, because it's not the train managers who do that. The train managers check your tickets and supervise the...
but I mean, even now, it's still hit and miss as to whether they've actually got anything. Sometimes they go, we've got some food and some drinks, but we haven't got any hot drinks because the hot drinks machine isn't working, or we haven't got any cold drinks because we didn't manage to load those up, or we're going to shut it early because we haven't got enough people to man it. I mean, the whole thing is an absolute disgrace.
Well, you could fly, but good luck with that. Very busy today at the airports. And if we can talk briefly about the ferries, the main link across the Irish Sea from Holyhead to Dublin is severed, and it will be till the 15th of January.
Why?
And I've been looking at the prices of flights. So Ryanair, because so many people obviously will want to go to Ireland, maybe they've got family there for Christmas.
Yeah.
Normally you get, each ferry holds about 2,000 passengers. So you've got
why isn't
8
it
of
running?
those a day. It's not running because of damage sustained during Storm Dara, if you can remember that far back. And so...
Well, surely they've got more than one ferry, haven't they?
They've got... Right, so it's the main link. They've got also Fishguard and Pembroke to Rosslare, and they put on an extra Fishguard to Dublin thing, but I don't know if anybody's ever tried to get to Fishguard. It does take about a week, in my experience. That's in the far west of Wales. And furthermore, the ferry itself takes twice as long as the one from Holyhead.
Yes.
And so you can't get that much happening there. And in you've got Cairn Ryan in southwest Scotland to both Larne and to Belfast. But again, Cairn Ryan, crikey, you lose the will to live.
Well, even trying to get to Stranraer if you're in Scotland is a nightmare, because it's all the way down. You're practically driving to Ireland by the time you get down there.
You are. You can sort of just about wave. But so that's tricky. And as a result, airfares have gone through the roof. Today, Ryanair have been selling over £500 one way from Gatwick to Dublin. And British Airways, there's a few flights still available today. 660 of your English pounds will get you in business class comfort to Dublin. So there we are, if you're in a hurry to get away.
That's very expensive. You can get a private jet for that. What about any last-minute bargains that we might wish to offer to the
there's loads.
To the lovely listeners?
I've found absolutely the best deal. £180 for a week, including flights and accommodation in a 4-star hotel. The catch is this is going on Christmas Eve, coming back on New Year's Eve. It's going from Birmingham. The catch is it's to Glasgow. So and a lot of people would say
that is good though.
Yeah, well, exactly. Very, very good deal. Unbelievable. 2 people, £180 each, and you'll be staying in 4-star luxury. If you want to go south, then probably the best deal if you want to avoid Christmas. British Airways holidays flying from Heathrow to Nice, 3 nights there. Nice hotel, about 190 quid, including your flights and your luggage and everything.
And where will you be spending Christmas? Will you be back here, or are you going to keep on your travels?
Unfortunately, you and I know, Mike, that travel at Christmas, something unravels. We've got no idea what it will be. Something will go wrong. So I'm just getting a little bit of a break in here in beautiful Vienna first, and then I will be heading for back to London and reporting on what's gone wrong. And I don't know what it will be, but I fear it will be something. I hope I'm completely wrong. I hope I'm sitting around drinking tea for the whole of the festive season. That would be a first.
Well, just push the boat out and have a glass of eggnog, perhaps.
Ooh, OK. Thank you.
Do me a favour. And listen, great to talk to you, Simon. Thank you very much indeed. Simon Calder, travel correspondent, guru, in fact, at The Independent. Let's get a voice note from James.
Morning, Mike. It's James from Blackburn. Just want to wish you a Merry Christmas and thank you for this year, because you keep me sane. You keep loads of us sane. Yeah, next year's probably not going to get any better, but at least, we have somewhere where we can all go and laugh about it. No growth in the economy. I thought Angela Rayner, well, she keeps telling us every time I see her on box, she's going, we're going for growth. And then, the clips you're showing of him, it's hard to choose a worse one, but I think the one that you've just shown where he's going, the sense of pride of woman is going to be delivering the budget. The pride. I mean, he looks so excited about it, doesn't he? Ooh, it gives me the EBGBs. And yeah, there's too many to choose from. But Merry Christmas.
Well done, James. Thank you very much indeed. It's true. I mean, it's unbelievable. We may have to play it again in a little while, old Keir Starmer and the Rachel Reeves being a woman thing. I mean, this is a guy who didn't even know what a woman was a few months ago. He wasn't sure whether they had a penis or not. Heaven's sake. Let's get another gaff on board. Kevin O'Sullivan, the old faithful.
Those things we were talking about. Give me a ring. 0344 499 1000. Joe Concha in America next. Stay tuned. Oh, have I? I've just worked out. I'm supposed to go in 60 seconds. So, is Isabel still there? No, I'll talk you through it. I'll tell you what we've got coming back on the rest of the show. Yes, right. Later on, we are going to be talking, as I say. Stay tuned, because after we've spoken to Joe Concha about so stay tuned. Got an excellent second hour for you. I think this time I can safely say see you after the news.
I mean, why don't you just talk? This is what we do for a living, right? You're supposed to talk. Just talk. You don't have to say, I'm going to talk about why I've not stopped talking or what's coming up in the next hour. Never mind. How about this? Courtney in Cheltenham. Not long ago, Keir couldn't even define what a woman was, yet now he's our champion. What a load of hypocrisy. How convenient to use gender for your virtue-signalling narrative. We see you, Keir, says Courtney. Neil in Dorset says, has anyone noticed that when the left are unhappy with the country, there is endless whining, griping and complaining? Yet when the right are unhappy, we make up funny songs and poems to ease our burden. Tells you something about people, doesn't it? Merry Christmas to all at Talk, says Neil in Dorset. Thank you very much, Neil. Yeah, I mean, we're nearly there, aren't we? I mean, just 4 days to go till Christmas Eve. If you are planning on driving today, just have a look out the window, because it might be better if you wait till tomorrow. Because apparently there's about 29 million other people driving as well on the roads, and half of them seem to be shut. But we'll bring you all the details on that as we go. Peter Blexley coming up in a little while. We're also going to talk about the High Court and Sharia law. We mentioned it on the show earlier this week. Apparently Britain is now the centre in the Western world for Sharia courts. People actually come here from other countries to get Sharia rulings. Why? What's going on? It's 8:40.
DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 8:42. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, and we will be here, of course, all the way through next year as we turn the corner into 2025. We'll be doing one more show before New Year, which will be a week on Monday, but after today, I'm going to take a week off and go and chill out somewhere and lie down in a dark room and try and see whether I can figure out what the awful hell is going on with this bleeding government. Let's talk to Charlotte Littlewood, former counter-extremism coordinator, because a story that came across our desks earlier this week, the Times investigation on Sharia law, or Sharia law, I suppose you might call it, in the UK. Apparently there's more Sharia courts in this country than in any other country, seemingly in the Western Hemisphere. And we're slightly concerned that many people here, including about 100,000 people who've got married under Sharia law, are not actually legally married. But there's also been a High Court fatwa ruling which has raised alarm over all of these Sharia courts in the UK. This is a story that was in the Times as well. A British Sharia council was given credibility by the High Court when the judge used one of its fatwas to decide a case. Amazing. The Islamic Council, founded by the hardline preacher Haytham al-Haddad, issued a religious ruling forbidding a health trust from allowing a brain-damaged child to die. Secular campaigners said using fatwas in civil courts undermined liberal democracy. Sounds like it, doesn't it? Charlotte, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
I mean, we were very shocked, actually, here at Talk when we saw that Times investigation earlier on this week, which discovered that Britain is the Western capital for Sharia councils. But what we didn't know, and what that story didn't say, was that regular courts in this country seem to be sort of recognising them.
Actually, that's not something I was aware of, regular courts recognising Sharia councils. Very much the policy has been that this is not recognised in legal courts and law, and that this should not develop into a parallel legal system. So that is incredibly worrying.
Yeah.
Religious courts or councils should not have any recognition in law. We have Jewish religious courts as well, and the Muslim religious courts or councils, as they should be referred to.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, is this the first time this has happened, as far as you're aware?
That's the first time that has happened. The growth in the use of Sharia councils and the leaning on by families and the pressure sometimes amongst families to use religious counsel rather than UK law and civil process, that has been an increasing phenomenon and something that concerns us around women's rights in particular. And it's something actually that the European Convention on Human Rights restricted our ability to do anything around intervening and limiting religious courts. But since we've now left the European Union, it might be a time to readdress what we can do to investigate the prevalence of women's rights abuses and actually look into regulating, not banning, but regulating to ensure that these councils are in keeping with law. And that's the same for other religious councils as well.
Right. I mean, why couldn't we just say, as a general rule and a general principle, that, you know, if you live in Britain and you work in Britain and you, you know, are making your living in Britain or whatever it is, you are subject to the laws of Britain. You can't just invent your own court system and use that to judge problems that you may encounter in the course of your dealings with your community.
So we have freedom of religion and belief, which extends to allowing those to engage in spiritual practices that are important to them. And if a spiritual practice is seeking religious guidance on things, as long as it doesn't run in covenants to our law, it's not a problem. But what we do have is cases of domestic violence being endorsed, marital rape being allowed. Haytham al-Haddad...
Cousins marriage as well, right?
Say that again?
Cousins marrying each other as well? Presumably.
Yeah, and polygamy. And Haytham al-Haddad in particular is a very problematic figure. He used to be the senior judge on the very first Sharia Council in the UK in 1982, and he has condoned FGM. He has said domestic violence between partners is something for them to figure out between the two of them. And he's very against homosexuality. He's called it a scourge. And he has likened Jews to apes and pigs, allegedly. So he is a particularly problematic figure. And he advises over a few Sharia councils. So we need to regulate and remove figures like him and councils that are contravening British law. And we need to ensure that women are married, and men, that marriage in general is done civilly and religiously. That would be a key recommendation of mine. If you want some kind of religious ceremony, I've just got married myself. We had a beautiful sort of humanist ceremony first, and then we got the legal bit done. You're well within your rights to kind of have any kind of agreement between the two of you, but you must, I think, if you enter into a religious marriage, that whether that's through the Jewish religious courts, there's a Christian one, but that's actually in tandem with our British law, and the Muslim courts, you must also get a civil marriage, because otherwise you're not protected in divorce for your assets. And it's been there's a case study in which a man used the Sharia council in order to avoid the asset splitting should he have a divorce. Some women are not aware of the rights that they're foregoing without having a civil marriage as well. So I think it must be made mandatory that you have a civil marriage, as well as whatever kind of festivity you want to have alongside that.
Yeah, because we also learned from the Times piece about wills, that you can make a will via Sharia court, in which case a woman, say if she's a sibling of a brother, gets half the amount that the brother gets because he's a man. You know, it all seems mad to me. If it was down to me, I would just say, look, you know, none of these things should exist. Sorry, you know, if you want to make a will, you make a will under the British law. You make a marriage under the British law. You know, if you want to dance around in circles and put, you know, a candle on your head, great, no problem. But that doesn't mean it's legal.
So I agree, but I think that strong regulation will get to a point where the councils that are following the law, I mean, there is one council in Birmingham that went as far as to say that divorce can happen because Prophet Muhammad said to a woman that she may divorce her husband just because she doesn't like him. And he follows that approach. That's more liberal than our Marriage Act in 2022 that said that, you know, that was divorce was only allowed if fault was found. So you have some councils that are really quite liberal in the way they're approaching this, and they're an opportunity for good, I would say. And then you have the Haytham al-Haddad-esque councils, which are, I would say, are criminal. And that's what we need to really regulate, crack down on, and ensure that there's a ranking system, that they're shut down, and that the regulation is such that imams are prosecuted if they are not having the people married in front of them also civilly married too, and ensuring that that woman in particular has her full rights protected.
Yeah, absolutely. Charlotte, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Have a good Christmas. Charlotte Littlewood, former counter-extremism coordinator. Let's get a voice note from Sean.
Sean from Bridlington here, up in the north. God, it's cold, mate. I tell you what, I've been out walking the dog on the seafront. It's so cold up north, I just saw a socialist with his hands in his own pockets. Can't believe it. Happy Christmas. Bye.
Yeah, well done. I see what you did there, Sean. Thank you very much indeed. Coming up, Peter Blexley's going to join us for some Christmas cheer. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham. It is, of course, Friday, so we've got gaffes galore for you, and we're playing them all the way through the show. Here's one from Julie Hartley-Brewer.
We're just going to have our little regular check to see whether we are fitting into that 0.1% of women in this country that do, according to our Prime Minister, have a penis. So, ladies, if you'd like, ladies, however you identify, if you'd like to have a look at the same time, we're just going to have a quick look and just check whether our penis has happened overnight or not. No?
No.
Still haven't got one?
No.
Amazing. I'm
Shocker.
yet to find a woman with a penis, and yet Keir Starmer reckons there are tens of thousands of them.
The less said about that, the better, probably. Let's talk to Peter Blexley, former Metropolitan Police detective, of course. Peter Blexley, very good morning to you. Greetings of the season.
Good morning to you, and season's greetings, of course.
Absolutely right. Unfortunately, we haven't got a very seasonal story to talk about. Britain's youngest knife murderers have a minimum jail sentence, and then they've had it increased to 10 years. And this is a guy who was born in Anguilla, lived in Birmingham, and when he was killed last year by two 13-year-old boys, thought to be Britain's youngest knife murderers, they were sent to prison. They can't be identified, but at least now they've had their prison sentences extended.
Yes, they've had 19-year-old Sean Cisahay murdered brutally, 4 stab wounds, one of which was 23 centimetres long.
Wow.
So both went from one side of his body to the other. A fractured skull as well, fatal injuries from which he could not recover. And at the time of killing 19-year-old Sean, the two murderers were actually 12 years old. Let's ponder that for a moment. Murdered by two 12-year-olds.
Unbelievable.
In a park when they should be playing football or having a laugh with their friends, not seeking to murder somebody. They got a ridiculously lenient sentence of 8.5 years, handed down by the original trial judge, Mrs. Justice Tipples.
Right.
And the prosecution quite rightfully appealed, saying this sentence was too lenient. The Court of Appeal judges heard the case, and they've increased it to 10 years, which is not a massive increase, of course, and it means that these two boys will be eligible for parole to be considered for release when they are in their early 20s. I personally think that remains a lenient sentence. I'd like to see it nearer the 15, 18-year mark. But, of course, that's a matter for the judges and the Sentencing Council, because it's the Sentencing Council which essentially hands down guidelines which judges must abide by. A tragic case, an awful case, and two kids convicted of murder.
Exactly. And they're the youngest defendants believed to be convicted of the crime since Thompson and Venables. Robert Thompson and John Venables were convicted for murdering James Bulger. And they were identified, it seems to me, quite early on, weren't they? What's going to be the situation with these two? Because these two have not been identified, but presumably they will be identified at some point going forward.
They've been granted lifelong anonymity orders because the trial judge felt that their welfare, yes, I'll say that again, felt that their welfare was more important than the public being told who these murderers are. I sometimes shake my head in disbelief.
I know.
Anyway, what I strongly suspect as I gaze into my rather gloomy crystal ball is that one or maybe both of these clearly disturbed children will probably go on to offend after they've been released. And it will be at that point, I'm sure, that the media will ask for those anonymity orders to be lifted. And let's face it, if they do commit further crimes, whensoever they are released, then it is only right that they are named. I personally don't think this anonymity order should have been put in place in the very first instance.
No, quite right. It's bizarre, isn't it, the way sometimes the wheels of justice work. Peter, it's been great to talk to you all through the year. Thank you very much indeed for all of your help to us and bringing us a great perspective on crime and the people that commit it. We'll look forward to seeing you in the new year, and we'll look forward to having a great Christmas. Hope you have a good one.
And to you too. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Good stuff. Peter Blexley, former Metropolitan Police Detective. Thank you very much indeed. Julian in Coventry says this. Morning, Mike. It makes me cringe so much listening to the virtue signalling Starmer going on about the first female Chancellor. What he should have said, she is the first old-fashioned female Chancellor, you know, the ones without a penis. Merry Christmas, says Julian. And Lynn says this. Mike, regarding your background, Christmas graphics, please, will you take off the falling snow? I have floaters in my eyes. Why have you got snow falling indoors? Great show. Keep up the good work. Well, you know, we had some trouble with the head of graphics earlier on in the week, and we had to basically manufacture our own background. And I'm sorry that there is still snow falling, but what I come to ask you to do is to think about Christmas, think about suspending your disbelief, think about the fact that what you're looking at is not actually real. All you're looking at is a background. I'm not actually sitting in front of a fire. I don't actually have a Christmas tree over my shoulder over there. I don't actually have... And oh, it's the other one. That's over there. I don't actually have, you know, snow falling on top of me. It's just an image. It's an image to try and bring you the best of what we do here at Talk, and to make you know that we're thinking about you and thinking about the festivities and opening the crackers, opening the champagne, and opening the box of Terry's All Gold or whatever it is. There are other chocolates available, of course. There'll be loads more coming up in the next hour. Ryan Slaby from The Sun joins us.
I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
I have just returned from Buckingham Palace to form the next government of this great nation.
Take a look at what happened.
I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack.
The time has come, and this surely is England's time. Williams, who scores, and Spain lead. A shot from distance is in. It is Cole Palmer. Low ball in or far ball, slides it in.
An absolute killer of a goal.
I agree with the protest, but I don't think the violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was the answer at all.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Liberal left couldn't understand that this man could be anything other than the great newsreader, a man of integrity.
Is it possible in any way, shape or form that Keir Starmer didn't know about these facts about the suspect in Southport?
I find it extraordinary that he wouldn't know. It seems that the public has not been told the truth.
No. There's nothing like an American election, I have to say. North Dakota has gone red, South Dakota's red, Texas is red.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason.
Bloomberg UK reporting Ukraine has made the first long-range missile strike inside of Russia. These are the missiles that Biden has approved for the...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham, 2 minutes past 9. I say it every time we get here. I don't know how we got here. This is the last show before Christmas that we're doing. I'm off for a week and I'll be back a week on Monday, which I think is the 30th of December. I hope you have a glorious Christmas. I mean, it has been a great year for an awful lot of people. An awful lot of people are worse off. An awful lot of people are ruining the day they voted the Labour Party in to power. We're watching them like hawks to see what it is they're going to do next. They haven't exactly done well on the report card. I think I'd be giving them about 1.5 out of 10 right now, if I could even bring myself to do that, as far as their concern for the public is concerned, and as far as their stewarding of the economy is concerned, because at front page of the Daily Mail this morning, it says Labour pledged to make us all wealthier. Now inflation's rising again, the bond markets are in turmoil, and the Bank of England says growth will slump to 0% after Rachel Reeves' ruinous budget. Yeah, I mean, Rachel Reeves has turned out to be a complete and utter wet fish when it comes to anything to do with the running of this economy. And before she, of course, got the job as the first female Chancellor of the Exchequer, Keir Starmer was raving on and on and on about how great it would be to have a woman Chancellor. We'll find out what he said in a minute. But let's get some of your views as they've been coming into us on voice notes.
Merry Christmas, Mike, to you and all the team.
Morning, Mike. Just wanted to wish you a Merry Christmas, mate, to you and your family and all your co-producers and everybody at Talk.
Morning, Mike. Merry Christmas to you.
James from Blackburn. Just want to wish you a Merry Christmas and thank you for this year because you keep me sane. You keep loads of us sane.
Well, listen, you keep me sane as well, because if I didn't have this to come in to do, God knows what I'd be doing, rampaging around London, feeling very, very upset with the Labour government. How about this, by the way? At a Public Accounts Committee meeting, a bloke by the name of Mark Wilde was speaking yesterday. He's the Chief Executive of HS2 Limited. He was saying that he's sorry that they had to spend £100 million on a bat cave for some bats so that they could be protected from the expansion of HS2. He said, look, I understand why it would raise public concern. It seems an extraordinary amount of money, but I would say this. I've actually visited the structure myself in my first weeks to see it. It is of great concern to me to understand. And he basically goes on to say he's complying with the law. He has to protect the bats, and 100 million quid seems a perfectly reasonable amount of money to spend. Is there any wonder the economy's down the gurgler? £100 million for a bat? No. Just no. This is Morning Glory. Ryan Sabi's coming up. We're going to talk about Joe Biden as well, because it turns out that he's been gaga for years. The Wall Street Journal have done an investigation in which they've decided and discovered that he didn't just go mad and go demented over the course of the last year. He actually was demented from the beginning of his presidency 4 years ago when he won, supposedly, an election against Donald Trump, who got 80 million votes. More than he got the time before, but it wasn't enough. Absolutely incredible. I mean, the whole of the Washington establishment should hang their heads in shame and should probably all be going to prison, shouldn't they? This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Now, it's gaff-free Friday. No, it's not. It's gaff-prone Friday. We're playing gaffs all over the place. Let's get one here from Jeremy Kyle.
Going back to the financial crash in 2007. And if that is supposed to be the engine that's going to provide cash for ailing public services...
Go on, behind them, he's got it behind them. Go on, Harry Kane! Goal! Sorry, JB. Go on, Saggers. All yours. All Kane there in the right place at the right time. Great work down the right-hand side for England. Denmark just on their heels, and Kane wasn't going to miss from 4 yards. Can I jump out my seat then? Everybody jump. Goal! 1-0. England score in the 18th minute.
That's Mark Saggers, of course, and Jeremy Kyle watching the football while he's interviewing somebody about the economy. Maybe that's another reason the economy's gone down the gurgler. Heaven's sake. Now, just before we talk to Ryan Sabi, deputy political editor of The Sun, let's have a look at some of the things that Joe Biden's been getting up to over the last 4 years. Check it out. Goes up the last bit, no problem. I mean, unbelievable, really, isn't it? Ryan Saby's here. Ryan, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Greetings of the season. Hope you have a nice Christmas. It's all kicking off, isn't it? We've got Keir Starmer coming into 6 months, I suppose, of his first ever prime ministership. Let's have a look at what he had to say yesterday at the Parliamentary Liaison Committee. Or maybe we don't have that yet. I think we'll have it in a minute. Will we have it in a minute? No, we haven't got it. Anyway, he appeared at the Liaison Committee earlier on yesterday, and he was asked if he had any sort of regrets and if he would do anything differently. And he said no, which is pretty staggering, really. He's either kind of completely deluded about how he's doing, or completely deluded about what he's doing.
Yeah, it was quite interesting hearing that, and I suppose you're with someone who's so early on in their term, they don't want to be swayed off course. They're looking at the big picture. He talks about this decade of renewal, so he thinks the whole thing is going to take a long time. And it's all about long-term planning. But you speak to when I speak to people in government, a few things they're sort of slightly concerned about was the way that they may have rushed certain decisions, maybe, or taken by surprise at the anger, particularly if you go back to the end of July with the winter fuel allowance decision, and that was obviously universal before, and it's not now. And I think the sort of comeback and the anger from that, really surprised a few people. They didn't warm the public up enough as well. They just announced it on the day. So I think that was one thing that I would point to, and also the farmers' tax as well. That's obviously riled a hell of a lot of people across the country. One of the things to point out about those two measures, they don't actually raise a massive amount of money. So they've lost a great deal of political capital on a couple of decisions that are probably raising, £2-3 billion pounds.
And that's the bit that's kind of puzzling, isn't it? Because, I mean, I was talking to Dan Hodges this week about the WASPy women thing, which they didn't really need to do. And if they had decided to do it, they could have done it in such a different way. And the reason why they got in so much trouble about it was that they'd gone to such means and such lengths, by the way, when they were in opposition, to put their arms around the WASPy women, to be pictured with them, to hold up, protest placards, to be quoted as saying, we will change this rule, we will not let these women be betrayed, blah, 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 and then they betrayed them.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that has wound up a lot of people. I've heard a lot about the WASPy woman. My mum is one, and she had to work that extra 6 years from the age of 60 to 66, and then they lose the winter fuel payment as well, and it gets people angry. But you had a lot of the now people in the cabinet, the likes of Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves, Liz Kendall, who actually sort of made the decision, campaigning with these people for years and years and years. And I think that's one thing that has really struck, ministers, that it's very easy to say one thing in opposition and, as you say, put their arm around people. But when you actually get into government and the hard yards of asking Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, for some extra money, it's just not going to happen. And as Keir Starmer said, he said that 90% of the impacted women knew about this decision, and it wasn't in the taxpayers' best interests.
No, exactly right. But, I mean, I can't think of anything, really, that they've done. Yesterday in the Liaison Committee, I think we've got the clip now. Let's just have a quick look.
Is there anything that you would do differently if you were starting out now, knowing what you know?
No, we had to do tough stuff. We're getting on with it, and I'm very pleased to be delivering from a position of power rather than going around the division lobbies losing every night. I've had too much of that.
Well, thank you very much.
And he keeps going on about the same thing. We're busy delivering. We're busy doing this. We're busy doing that. Trying to make, he'll say, like he said to Harry Cole in Estonia, we're delivering people, making people more wealthy. We're making people better off. We're giving people the opportunity to get faster up the NHS waiting list. He's not doing any of those things. Why does he keep saying it?
Yeah, I think he's just trying to paint this picture of his sort of ideals and where he sees the government in five years' time. But the trouble is, he keeps talking about how he wants people to make them feel better. you look at the economy, and the Bank of England forecast is expected to be zero for the last 3 months of this year. You go back to those forecasts at the time of the budget where say growth will be 1.6% over the sort of 5 years, or less than 2%. And you wonder how people are actually going to feel better in their pocket if growth is so bad. And then they talk about fixing the NHS, but it won't be until spring next year where Wes Streeting will actually come up with his plan. And they were in opposition. It's all very well having a go at the Conservatives for being in government and not doing anything. They were meant to be coming up with that plan in preparation and being ready for government. Keir Starmer, I was on the plane with him travelling just before the general election was held, and he said he wanted to hit the ground running. So I think that perhaps they have just found government that quite a bit harder than what they actually thought.
Yeah. But really, is that legitimate? Should they not have expected it to be exactly as it is? I mean, they talked about being prepared. He kept saying they were prepared. We've got a clip which we play from time to time, which has Keir Starmer saying, we are prepared for government, we're prepared in every department, we have fully costed everything that we're going to do. He even said to Harry Cole, everything that we did, we knew we were going to do. So he can't hide behind this nonsense of, well, we weren't expecting it to be this hard, or we weren't expecting it to be this difficult to find money. I mean, he's just found 1.6 billion to fix a load of potholes, which a lot of people are saying is not enough money, but he finds money when he needs to. The big pot is a pothole decision. I think they're the sort of things that wind people up, and he just wants to pour money in that direction. But a couple of things that he's pointed to in the last couple of weeks or so is the sort of the slow nature of making decisions in government. And he talks about how civil servants, find it, they talk about they're comfortable in that sort of tepid bath of just normality and not pushing boundaries, and actually just they're in that comfort zone. So I think he needs to change that. But one of the big things as well, he talks about planning reform and building more houses. This is just going to take time, and if he's gone about unlocking the economy and changing planning rules is going to be the way to reach that growth, it's going to take years and years and years to actually see results on the ground. And again, we were told that, Morgan McSweeney was this genius, sort of Svengali figure behind the whole Downing Street operation. He managed to outsmart Sue Gray. She's off to the House of Lords. It looks like, he's going to be running the shop, as it were, has been running it for the last couple of weeks, maybe last couple of months. But he's not doing a brilliant job, is he? Well, I think one thing they'll be trying to do, they've been in power for near enough 6 months, and he will just be trying to bring the whole government machine together to make sure that all the departments are actually doing what they say and focusing on those key issues that Keir Starmer spoke about in that big speech, whether it was on the economy or the NHS or antisocial behaviour, and just making sure that the whole of the government machine is focused on those targets, because they know that what was judged, we laugh about the missions and the foundations, but those 4 or 5 things are going to be the things that people judge them on. And they're very, very acutely aware of the threat. I wouldn't say so much from the Conservatives, I don't take this lightly, but the threat from Nigel Farage and Reform. They know that there's a lot of anger out there, and a lot of Labour voters and Labour supporters could switch to Reform, and that is what they are acutely aware of. And they're terrified of all the money that's likely to be pouring into Reform's coffers as well, which brings me to Donald Trump. I mean, Trump is going to be the new president of the United States of America in a few short weeks. Today, we find out from the Wall Street Journal that Joe Biden, having been investigated by the Wall Street Journal, was gaga pretty much from the day he got into office, rather than deteriorating in the last few months of his tenure. Let's have a couple of examples. Here he is mumbling a speech where nobody could actually work out what he was trying to say, because in the end, everybody kind of saw what was going on in front of their very eyes. Have a look at this.
She knows so long as she was denied, our freedom can never be secured.
Yeah, sorry, Joe. He was doing that all the way through his presidency, wasn't he? I mean, this surely, if this was happening in Britain, would be a massive scandal. Some people have already said to me, this is worse than Watergate. The fact that all of these people covered up for Joe Biden. It's pretty bad, and I think at the very beginning of
a presidency, people keep a tight rein on these things. You don't get that many people speaking out because they are part of the operation. Their jobs are dependent on someone like Joe Biden. If they're in the White House and they are, a key advisor, they won't let this on, and they think they can probably just get on by with it. But as you get to the end of that 4-year presidency, people have left office, and they start to talk out, and they start to speak to journalists and magazine writers and the like, and they just tell the truth of what's actually happened. And I think that is one thing that we'll realise, that there's a lot more of this story to actually come out.
Yeah. Absolutely, Ryan. I'm sure it will come out. Ryan, have a great Christmas. Good to see you. We'll see you in the new year. Thanks very much indeed. Deputy Political Editor at The Sun. Coming up, we're going to talk about that story about how the BBC continually refuses to play the song that is anti-Starmer, which is going to be probably Christmas number 1. It's called Freezing This Christmas. Let's get a voice note, though, from Nigel.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1... Oh, Keir, what could the matter be? Worst PM in this nation's history. A budget from Rachel makes farmers all jittery, and pensioners freeze, they don't care. Cheers, Keir.
Well done, Nigel. Very good. Well played indeed. We've had such amazing voice notes this week from everybody. Absolutely remarkable. Let's get another gaff, because it is Friday, and it's a special Friday. It's the last Friday before Christmas, the last one for us before Christmas as well. Last show we're going to do, and then we'll be back a week on Monday. Here's Julie Hartley-Brewer asking Craig McKinley to turn off his diabetes machine.
Into the jobs that we need. So I don't, I'm not really surprised.
Goodness, sorry. Something's ringing. Help.
We'll just import that labour because it's very easy to
Craig,
do.
can we turn off whatever that alarm is, or it's someone that's sending an email or something?
So employers then look to import people, Canada, even Japan. So it's not as strange as you might think. Sorry, Julia, I really can't stop that. That is my diabetes monitor saying my level is a little bit wrong, but let's crack on.
Right, well, OK, well, if you need to go, let us know, but...
She's all heart, isn't she? That's what Julie Hartley-Brewer stands for, don't you know? How about this from people on the NHS? We were talking about this earlier. From John. The NHS, my local hospital, is being closed, and they're opening a crematorium instead. Says it all. I want to hear from G, who says, NHS redundancies are being offered. I work in a hospital, and they're offering redundancies to cleaners and porters to save money. Doesn't affect management. Things are getting dirtier and more cluttered by the day, as we're short on essential low-level staff. That's a nightmare. And John says this, NHS England is spending a fortune on new uniforms for all trusts. This is to ensure they all have the same colours throughout the trusts and different grades of staff. I'm not saying this isn't good to make them smart and look professional, just is it money well spent and critical at this time? Well, probably not. Happy Christmas to all at Talk. Merry Christmas to all of you as well. Coming up next, Steve Denyer is going to be here. Also, we're going to talk to Chris Middleton, the man that wrote Freezy this Christmas.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham, 24 minutes past 9. I mean, goodness me, only half an hour left of the show, and then we're off until Christmas. It's amazing. I don't know how this has happened. I really don't. We've got some voice notes coming in. We've got some text coming in. We've got all sorts going on. We've got a gaff as well. This one, I have to say, is from the News Bulletin. Have a look.
Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel has settled its account with Hamas after killing its leader Yahya Sinwar. And colleagues not doing their jobs properly apparently tops the list of our most annoying work gripes.
Certain irony there, isn't there? You can't say Netanyahu. Netanyahu? For heaven's sake. How about this one from Angelo? It says 100 million quid HS2 for bats. How about the wildlife that's destroyed by windmills? Well, that's a very good question. I don't know. What can I tell you? Steve Denier's here. Very good morning to you.
Happy Christmas, Mike.
Happy Christmas.
I love the backdrop. You look, it's very nice, warm and lovely.
Yeah, unfortunately we had to make it ourselves because the head of graphics wasn't capable of putting it together. Nobody's seen him since Tuesday. That
really?
What's happened to him, yeah.
That's showbiz.
Last time we saw him, we went to a Christmas party and then he's been ill since.
Right.
I mean, you know, this happens, that old chestnut. So, let's talk about Christmas number ones because, shall we play a little bit of Freezing This Christmas? Here we go.
It'll be freezing this Christmas while our money goes abroad. It'll be freezing this Christmas. Rachel Reeves is a fraud. It'll be cold, so cold, without fuel at home this Christmas.
There we are. So this is Chris Middleton's hit, Freezing This Christmas, which is amazing, isn't it? How everybody's saying it's based on Mud's, 1974 hit, Lonely This Christmas. It was actually an Elvis Presley song originally, wasn't it?
Originally, of course,
Lonely This Christmas. I'm pretty sure I've got the original Elvis Presley song, which I could do if you want. No, I'm not going to. No,
I was hoping you were. Isn't it amazing, though? We talk about this time and time again. The BBC have banned playing this song.
Why?
Just by doing that, they've given it great traction. Just in the last couple of hours, I'm just reading here, it's now the nation's second favourite for Christmas number one.
Wow.
They reckon Wham will do it again.
Okay.
However,
with Last Christmas.
Yes.
And they never, if I'm right in saying they never got to number one with Last Christmas when it was first released.
That's right,
because
it
of
came,
Band-Aid.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
So it got to number one last year.
Right.
They reckon if it gets number one again this year, it'd be the first record in the history to, have two number ones, consecutive years.
Yeah. Brilliant. And this is a great, I mean, it's people are saying it's anti-Starmer. It sort of is, but it's a bit like the kind of stuff we do. It's kind of lampooning him rather than being particularly nasty about him. And we're going to talk as well to Chris Middleton in a minute. But, I mean, there's been a strange history with the BBC of banning songs, hasn't there?
It really has ever since. I mean, the first one I remember is Mike Reed banning Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Right.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Not a Christmas song, but obviously once it was banned, it was on everybody's, list of buying
and the
Sex
Pistols got banned, I think, for Anarchy in the UK or something like that.
That's right.
And then, I mean, I remember, I was telling you this morning, I suddenly remember because I remember buying the single, So Old I Am, Paul McCartney, who's just been playing at the O2.
Yeah.
A High, High, High was the name of the song.
Yes.
And it was like references to drugs and stuff like that. And it must have been probably early 70s, 73, 74.
And didn't they play the B-side instead?
And then the B-side was a thing called Sea Moon, which was a sort of weird song. It was one of those McCartney songs, you didn't know what it was about. It was I have no idea what this is about, but it was quite catchy, and that became the number one hit.
Yeah.
Because they just played the B-side instead.
Of course.
And
the other great one, and we mentioned this earlier, is the Pogues, and you've got a story about this, because what happened?
Yeah, well, there was a couple of Christmases ago, Fairy Tale of New York was a great song, one of my favourite songs, and of course the view was that some of the lyrics were a little bit too racy for this day and age, and it was, you scumbag, you maggot, you cheap, lousy faggot, and apparently they didn't like that, and so they did a sort of radio edit for it, and the BBC started playing it, and I went on Twitter to support the Pogues, to say, look, you guys shouldn't be changing the lyrics, it's fine, what's everybody getting so worked up about? And they ended up blocking me, right, on Twitter. I was going, but I'm on your side.
Yeah, what was that about?
And it was because the lead singer, of course, had, I think, passed away by then, and so it was just the rest of the band who nobody's ever heard of, a bunch of nobodies, and took it upon themselves to be all politically correct. correct.
Yeah.
And go, oh no, we don't want to sing that lyric. That's really, really horrible about homosexuals or women or something.
So every year we play that. We're playing at the moment on Virgin Radio, but every year
and
a bit
you
more
play the
seems
original.
to be. Well, we play an abridged version.
Right.
That I think has the word haggard in it.
Yes, because that's what they did. They made it sound the same.
Yes.
But it wasn't.
You
the
can
word.
barely notice, but they were different times. I mean, that record's like 40 years old now, you know. You also had a record a couple of years ago citing Boris Johnson. I can't even tell you the band or what it was called because it would be my last bit of showbiz ever. But that was banned in 2020. This is a lot of fun. And the thing is with this record, it's not obscene.
No.
It's not, you know.
And also the money's all going to charity, I
Of
think,
course
isn't
it's Help the Aged. Yeah.
So
it's doing a good thing.
Anybody's getting rich on it. It's really a shame. I think, have we got Chris Middleton? We have. Chris, a very good morning to you.
Hello, good morning.
Yeah, nice to talk to you. Good to see you. Did you expect this to happen? I mean, obviously you did this as a sort of off-the-cuff, a bit like we do every single day, a bit of making fun of Keir Starmer. Everybody enjoys doing it. It's very easy to do because he's such a plonker. But, I mean, here you are suddenly in the middle of the centre of all this controversy about BBC banning you. You could have a #1 for Christmas. It could be great.
Yeah, well, I didn't expect any of this whatsoever, Mike. Thanks for having me on. I put it together. I thought it was a good idea. I thought I might be able to raise a bit of money for charity with it if enough, a few tens of thousands of people like it, maybe. And then once it kind of got hold online on social media, on Twitter and on Facebook, it just kind of took off a life of its own, way beyond anything I ever thought would happen, to be honest.
And so, I mean, how many downloads is it at the moment, if you know?
I mean, it's almost impossible for me to tell at this point. It's just so it's had over 10 million views across all platforms. It's had tens of thousands of downloads on the music platforms, streams as well, possibly hundreds of thousands on the music platforms. Yeah, it's quite hard to keep track of at this point.
And I mean, have you done anything like this before? I mean, I don't know enough about your history really, but I mean, have you ever done anything like this, and was it hard finding a place to record it and put it out there?
No, I've never done anything like this at all, Mike. And to be honest, the whole thing, I basically made it from my computer at home. I hired a guy to do the vocals. He had his own booth. He did that. He sent them to me. I hired a second guy to do the video. And then I did all the work in between, putting it together and producing the track just at home, basically. So it was all just done essentially in my bedroom.
And did you have to get permission from anybody for the music?
So I spent a long time trying to figure out how all that worked, and I'm still not sure, to be honest. I found a backing track, which I did pay for, from someone who'd done their own, obviously, newer version, new instrumental to the track. As for the actual original composition that's owned by Mud, I wasn't quite sure about that. From what I read, doing a parody should be fair use. And I thought, if I'm doing it all for charity, I'm not trying to make any money personally, then hopefully they wouldn't mind.
Well, let's hope not. And if anybody starts hassling you for it, you should get in touch with us, and we'll see what we can do, because you don't want that.
Thank you.
What about the charitable monies that you might make? Do you have any idea yet how much you've raised?
Yeah, so we have a Just Giving fundraiser that's raised over £33,000 or close to now, which is unbelievable. My initial target was 5,000, and then I changed that to 50,000. So hopefully we can get to that big target now. As for the streams and the sales and all that kind of stuff, I've got absolutely no idea. I don't know how much of a cut Amazon, Apple, and all those people take. I don't know if I have to pay tax on it. I've not really looked into any of that yet, Mike. It's been a bit of a whirlwind. But after Christmas, I'll get all that sorted out.
Has it given you any thoughts about whether you need to have a change of career now?
Well, this is what a lot of people say. I think I only did this because I thought it was actually a good idea in the first instance. I wasn't trying to force a song. I wasn't trying to do it on purpose to lampoon the government or raise money. I just had the idea first, and then everything else came after. So if I can come up with another good idea, who knows, maybe. Or if they don't reverse the winter fuel allowance cut, maybe next year we'll re-release it. We'll see what happens.
I'm sure there'll be plenty of material that you can get stuck into in the early part of next year. Brilliant.
Yeah,
well, listen,
absolutely.
well done, Chris, and a really fantastic piece of British ingenuity, I would say. So congratulations. Thank you very much indeed. Chris, of course, there having organised the whole situation. It's very funny, isn't it, though, because they say with streaming and all of that, unless you're megastar, unless you're like Coldplay or U2 or somebody, you don't make an awful lot of money from streaming.
No, I was checking earlier. You can download it as a ringtone this song for 79p.
Right.
So that's quite. That could be quite profitable for them. But all eyes on this, so it's fascinating. They reckon Wham! #1, possibly, Mariah Carey, Brenda Lee, but this record could be the big surprise, and we'll find out after 4 o'clock this afternoon.
And the BBC keeps saying, oh, we haven't banned it, but they're just not playing it, right?
Yeah, it was a really... What did they say? They just said, we defend our stance. Decisions are made with relevant audiences and context in mind, which means what?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything, does
it's
it?
typical BBC sort of fudge, isn't it?
It would appear so.
Oh, yeah, no, we're absolutely not banning it, but it just doesn't happen to have ever been played. Well, it sounds like you banned it then.
It's just bizarre, like we say, nothing offensive about the record.
No.
It's funny. Actually, I think it's kind of genius.
It is.
I think it's really, it's a nod into the right direction.
And the video they've made in sort of black and white is quite kind of stark. It makes you sit up and take notice. So Chris has done a great thing, and I think long may it continue. But we shall see. Christmas #1, maybe only a few days away. What else is going on over Christmas? Any big Paul McCartney? I was just saying, big show. Christmas went last night. Fantastic, apparently. He brought on Ringo Starr.
Apparently that moment was just incredible.
Yeah.
Ringo Starr came on and did, obviously Sgt. Pepper's, and the whole audience. There was a gasp in London's O2 last night. I think it's the closest that any of us will get to see the Beatles now.
Absolutely.
And a really great moment. Sir Paul McCartney in his early 80s, he went on and he did a 3-hour plus show. Ronnie Wood joined him on stage last night, so there were a lot of gutty people who didn't get a ticket last night.
I got invited and I couldn't go.
No way.
Yeah, I was getting a lot of brickbats from certain people for that, but there we are. Yeah. What are you going to do? Steve, good to see you. Have a great Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Hopefully I'll see you before Christmas if all goes well.
Lovely.
For a little bit of a winter cheer, Christmas cheer of one kind or another. We've got more Christmas cheer coming your way between now and 10 o'clock, of course. Coming up, we're going to speak to Rupert Bell, who's been out and about with the Royals, would you not believe. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:38. It's almost all over, but of course there's plenty coming here over the course of the next few days before Christmas here at Talk, the home of common sense. Plank of the week, of course, coming out. There's a Christmas special coming out. There's a Plank of the Year coming out. There's Clash of the Titans all over the place. There's Grumpy Old Men all over the place as well. Lots and lots for you to see over the course of the next few days. And then, as I say, after the Christmas period is over, we'll be back in this very seat a week on Monday. Let's have another gaff, though, because it's Gaff Friday. I don't want to say, there must be another word, Gaff Prone Friday? I don't know. Anyway, here we are, I am, with James, Max and Ian Collins, not trying to pronounce, but me trying to tell them how to pronounce Booyakasha.
TVing sayings that we all knew and loved, they're all dying out, apparently. Yeah. Booyakasha, obviously.
Booyakasha!
Booyakasha! Yes.
I think it's how you say it.
I thought it was Booyakasha.
Yeah, Kasha. No, I've never heard it say that before.
All right, all right.
A third of Gen Z is born between 1997 and 2012 due to Blanket Ali G's Booyakasha.
Booyakasha!
Who, for some reason, James Max seems to think is pronounced Booyakasha. I'm like, sorry? He was convinced it was true.
According to a survey even, around a quarter do not recognise. You see, there would be a catchphrase in there, wouldn't there? A third of Gen Zers drew a blank at Ali G's Booyakasha.
Booyakasha!
And there you go. It is Booyakasha, not Booyakasha. It just isn't that. I'm sorry. I'm not having it. Let's talk to Rupert Bell. He is, of course, Talk's royal correspondent and man about town. Rupert, a very, very, very festive good morning to you and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you and a festive good morning to you.
Yes. Now, I've seen pictures of you with Princess Anne. Tell us about that.
Well, I'm at the London International Horse Show this week, which is taking place at Excel, and on Wednesday night, I have a job as, a role as chairman of the British Equestrian Media Association.
Yes.
And as a result, we've been working on this for some time, but was able to present to the Princess Anne a Lifetime Achievement Award. We have a lunch every Wednesday at the start of this particular week where we celebrate the achievement of our equestrian athletes, and many have done very well this year with 5 Olympic medals. But we honoured the Princess Royal, Princess Anne, with our Lifetime Achievement Award. She's a much decorated rider. She's a former Olympian. She won the European Championships when she was 21. But she's also been a very effective administrator for the sport of equestrianism. She was FEI president for 8 years. She's worked on the Olympics for the IOC. She's worked for the British Olympic Association, very much promoting equestrian sport. And it was a real privilege to be able to honour her in such a way. And I'll tell you what, she was very honoured to receive it, because she's normally the one giving out glass or medals and whatever. But she was very honoured to receive it, and it was a real privilege to be able to do so.
And she is one of the proper hard-working royals, always has been, isn't she?
She doesn't, she's no fuss, no bother, just gets on with it. And that's been her mantra throughout her life, and her sense of duty. And she has this fabulous way, and many people say when they talk to her that she manages to really give the impression that she's totally engaged with whoever she's talking to. And I can definitely now vouch for that, because and that was a great. We did it in front of a sellout crowd at the Excel on Wednesday night, and the crowd were also able to appreciate what she's done for equestrian sport over the years.
Yeah, a friend of mine got an honour from her. His MBE was presented to him by Princess Anne, and he was gobsmacked by some of the questions that she came up with him, knowing so much about him. He was like, I couldn't quite believe it. He was already sort of stunned to be in the same room in the first place. And then when she suddenly went, so what bands are we looking at this year? And so, they started talking to her about music. He was just sort of like, he didn't know really what to do. But she's quite remarkable, apparently. Let's talk a bit about the other royals, though, because, of course, there was a big lunch yesterday, the Christmas lunch, which Prince Andrew was told not to go to, we're told, by his former wife, Fergie. But also, it turns out William and Kate didn't go either.
Yeah, well, and that was expected, because their school holidays have begun for their children, and they've gone up to Norfolk already. So I don't think we can read too much into that, and it's probably they wanted to get up to Norfolk. They will have Christmas with the rest of the family once they all arrive at Sandringham. There's going to be a huge lunch. But, of course, as you say, there is no Andrew, no Sarah, and I don't think Andrew wasn't at the lunch yesterday. And, obviously, he's going to be holed up in Windsor for the Christmas period. So, again, just reflecting that he has not helped his cause by his friends that he's been associating with over the years. And, obviously, this latest scandal that is affecting him with his relationship with this Chinese, alleged Chinese spy is obviously causing him more problems as he tries to navigate his future, which is, as in recent years, of course, has been beset with so many different problems.
Exactly right. And a nice picture on the front page of The Sun today, after their worst year ever, the Christmas card from Wills, Kate and the kids. Lovely picture.
Yeah, I'm sort of taken at the time when they produced the video that came out on their summer holidays. So a sort of happy family picture. Because obviously as a family, and like so many families, the length and breadth of this country whose a member will be suffering from cancer, it will have been a very difficult year. So they are no different. So many families. And with the news, the more positive news about the Princess of, and obviously, hopefully, they're going to be able to enjoy Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely right. And the King's cancer treatment is going to continue into the new year, we're told. Oh, I think we've lost Rupert. Rupert, sorry about that. We'll come back to you if we can. But yeah, that's the other story that we were going to do on the Royals this morning. That King Charles's cancer treatment is supposedly going to be carrying on into the new year, which I don't think anyone will be particularly surprised about. But obviously, we wish him well in all of those endeavours. Coming up, of course, we've got Plank of the Week, and it's a Christmas special. Have a look at this. Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week. It's the one show where you do not have to be worried about judgmental people because we'll do all the judging for you. Let's just have a look at how Humsley Useless is now spending his time.
Here goes your career, mate.
Over there a bit is over towards where all the migrants come in. He's jumping there. There he goes. He goes over the bar. Hello, and unfortunately, it catches on his Johnson.
If he's Plank of the Week, he's got a sizable plank.
That's a whole different show.
And when you see that this week, it has... and when you see that this week, it has a little bit of tinsel added in and a little bit of a special background as well. Also not arranged by the head of graphics. But don't worry, it looks very good. Looks very good indeed. We'll play something from Clash of the Titans coming up in a minute as well. How about this from Alan, who very kindly says this. Mike, I'm not being sycophantic, but you have been an absolute godsend since moving into the morning slot. You have entertained, made us chuckle at 6 a.m. and delivered news with warts and all. Thanks for being so resilient and for the consistency doing an early morning role. Wishing you a fantastic Christmas and a superb new year. I really appreciate that. It's very kind. Thank you so much for all of you who have been listening and watching, and the growing band of people who are now joining Morning Glory every single day from 6 until 10. Brad in Cambridge says, "Morning, Mike. I can remember the BBC band My Ding-a-Ling by Chuck Berry way back in the day." Yes, I remember that as well. One here from Abby. "Mike, love the show. Sat here sniggering away with my colleague Liz every morning, saving the nation, working at the National Arms Service. Things can only get better in 2025. Oh, hang on. Love and all the best, Abby, an undisclosed hospital." Well, it's good to know that you're listening. And obviously, as I always say, there are plenty of good people in the NHS. It's just the bleeding management that are crap. It's true. 9:47, more coming up after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 9:51. Alex Phillips will be here very shortly to tell us what's coming up on her show after 10. Graham from Bushy says we have to tell our children and grandchildren that they will receive fewer Christmas presents this year, as Santa has had to lay off several of his helpers because of the rising cost of his employer's national insurance charge, thanks to Rachel Thieves, and his remaining helpers can't keep up with the workload. Absolutely right. And Paul in Portsmouth, Bournemouth rather, says Merry Christmas, Mike, and Benedict as well. Please keep up the great work in 2025. Margaret, currently in Tunisia, says, I just want to wish you, Benedict Spence, all Talk presenters, contributors, all the people that help put the shows together a very happy Christmas. Thank you all for keeping me sane amongst the political turmoil and complete incompetence that we have had and are continuing to endure. And Clayton in Dartford says, you ask what Labour are delivering. The answer is, of course, complete misery. Merry Christmas. Yeah, very true. Now, one of the things that we talked about this week was how on earth we managed to get some kind of Christmas spirit into the show. As you might remember, at the beginning of the week, we were troubled by the fact that we were given what can only be described as a very, very poor rendition of something Christmassy, which was basically the normal backdrop with a bit of snow falling on it. And so we ended up with what we've got today. As you can see, it looks a lot better, doesn't it? This is how it happened, and this is how it unfolded with the head of graphics. I'm afraid the head of graphics hasn't come up with anything better than what I've got behind me. He still hasn't done anything. I don't know what's going on. I shall be making another entreaty to him earlier on this morning to say, can you not give us... I mean, I was doing Plank of the Week this week, and we did a Christmas special, and the background was amazing, beautiful. You know, lots of holly, lots of, you know, mistletoe, lots of baubles. This looked really Christmassy. This is crap. I'm sorry. If it was down to me, I'd fire him. Okay. I'm sorry about the background. I mean, it's not very Christmassy. It's the best we can do, apparently. This is about as imaginative as the head of graphics gets.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, nevertheless, at least it's wintry, if not that Christmassy.
Wintry, yes. You know. Maybe that's the problem. You know, there's no reference to Christmas at all.
No, not.
You know, it's like you might as well be on the BBC. We've decided to give up on the head of graphics because he's basically useless, hasn't done what he was asked to do, hasn't fulfilled his mandate in any way, shape or form. So we've decided to do our own Christmas backdrop, and there's only one man that can introduce it, and here he is.
3, 2, 1.
Yay! Yay! There we go. Hey. Isn't that great? Now, you might not be able to see it depending on the angle that you're looking at it for, but not only have we now got snow, we've also got some baubles, we've got some wreaths going on in the background there. It looks a lot more Christmassy,
much more festive.
I think that's much better. So well done, guys. Thank you very much indeed. We have, by the way, decided to fire the graphics chief. The head of graphics, you might have heard yesterday, was absent without leave. Nobody knows where he is. He's supposed to have fixed the background for this show. We decided to do it ourselves. We've got a bit of snow now, but not only that, we've now also got some sort of, you know, some pine, some joyous baubles and some little green and red colours. It just looks an awful lot better. There you go, look at that. Doesn't that look a lot better? I mean, I'm telling you, this is what we should be looking at. That now is a proper Christmas background. So thank you very much. No thanks to the head of graphics, who's no longer the head of graphics. He's been removed from that job. We'll put him in charge of something else, maybe the toilets. As if you weren't feeling festive enough, because we've told you earlier about the trouble we've had with the head of graphics here at Talk, the man that hasn't managed to actually produce anything that looks in any way festive whatsoever. We've managed to find something else, nothing to do with him, which we're going to put forward now as our final offering for the festive season, because we're literally 2 days away from disappearing off for Christmas, right? Let's have a countdown from the man that knows how to light Christmas trees.
3, 2, 1. Yay!
Look at that. Now you're talking. Now you've got a proper Christmas season. It appears to be snowing indoors. That's all right. We don't mind that.
I don't know how it is you're getting it to snow inside over there. I can't get to do that here.
No, I can't manage. I can't explain that. We've had a lot of problems.
Why doesn't it settle on your shoulders?
Peter Hitchens, who else could you have as the Grinch that stole Christmas? He turns up at the end there. But look at this. Now we've got a proper Christmas celebration going on, and we are literally minutes away from departing from these shores to go and head away to go and do a few days off of R&R. Very well reserved. My daughter's here. My other kids are around as well. All things are going on which are good, and we're going to be... In fact, I've got another party to go to tonight, which I'm going to go home and have a sleep for in preparation, which will be good. A couple of more tweets and texts for you. Good morning, Mike, and happy Christmas from the Philippines, says Mike. I'm exiled here due to the lack of housing, which Angela Rayner says doesn't exist. I shall be on endless replays of Plank of the Week to get me through to New Year without going gaga. Salamat to you and the team at Talk. And one from Sean in Warwickshire says, it was God Save the Queen that was banned in the Jubilee year, 1977. Rod Stewart went to number 1 when it should have been the Sex Pistols, which outsold Rod Stewart. Yeah, that must have been what it was. Have a brilliant Christmas, says Michelle. Thank you for keeping us company in the mornings and for the laughs. It does certainly help. Well, I think so. I mean, you got to laugh, really. I mean, we sort of discovered it by accident, that things are going so badly for this government that the only thing you can really do is laugh. Mike from North Staff says, the worst Prime Minister in living history says he is the party of change. I believe he needs to change Rachel Reeves' title to Chancellor instead of Chancellor. It would be far more accurate. Shall we have a look at Keir Starmer saying how happy he was to introduce Rachel Reeves as the first woman Chancellor in history? Have a look.
It will also be the first budget delivered by a woman ever. That is a moment of pride. When Rachel Reeves stands up, she will be making history. And I can tell you, young women and girls across the country will be watching, they will look up, and they will notice.
I'll tell you what we're going to do now. I mean, after Starmer, you don't know what else to do, but since it's Christmas, why don't we play this great Christmas song that we got from Matt just the other day.
It's beginning to fall apart for Starmer. Everywhere you stroll, take a look in at number 10. It's chaos once again, as they're sucked in through their imaginary black hole.
We were left a £22 billion black hole.
For Starmer, the toolmaker's son who's such a bore. And the most likely thing you'll see is the policeman that will be at your own front door.
There we are. Matt, thank you very much indeed. It's longer than that. We might play it again over the course of the next few days. Alex Phillips is here. Let's get a final voice note montage for Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Mike, to you and all the team.
Morning, Mike. Just wanted to wish you a Merry Christmas, mate, to you and your family and all your co-producers and everybody at Talk.
Morning, Mike. Merry Christmas to you.
James from Blackburn. Just want to wish you a Merry Christmas and thank you for this year because you keep me sane. You keep loads of us sane.
Just to say thank you to all of you at your station and for helping us through.
Hi, Mike. It's Mike from Lancashire. Spoke to you for a few times.